all of council here. So we'll call the special meeting of council to order at 2 p.m. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. Motion to confirm the agenda for the special council meeting September 9th to be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Fallon, seconded by Councillor Bath. All in favor? Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. And there's one item on the agenda really covered under 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. And Mr. Clerk, this is largely going to be your meeting to lead as the staff report. So as I turn it over to you, I just want you and staff and Deputy Clerk and other staff to know that anything that's said here is don't take it personally.
Of course.
I know how much work you put into the procedural bylaw and how much all of this means to the clerk's department. So we appreciate the effort and take it away, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lawrence. And yes, we work hard to put together a good product for council, but at the end of the day, it's council's procedure bylaw. And so I'm looking forward to the exercise of getting some final decisions on certain clauses as we go through today. So I think for ease, what I may do is share the screen so that that way we can all look at the same thing at the same time. So let's try this. Okay, can folks see the what I'm sharing?
I can, so I'm going to assume that everybody can.
Okay, great. So I'm thinking the easiest thing to do is just to sort of go through each section, and we will council can let me know how they wish to proceed. So the first section is 2.3, which is the definition of acting mayor. There's a question about whether there was one or multiple. Bylaw 1520, which provides for acting mayors, does list each member of council taking a turn, and so the question was whether or not it should be plural. And so in this case, I believe that it should, if council's okay with that.
Sorry, if should what be plural?
The members of council.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Gotcha, yes. Council, I'm just going, because I can't see everybody, you're going to have to, and I don't, there's many items here. I don't want to do the roll call on each and every item. So if it's all right, Council, I'm going to rely on you to speak up. You'll have to unmute and speak up because I can only see a certain number in this view. Looking at the screen, I can only see a few of you. I see right now Councillor Timpson and Councillor Cassidy, and you're not waving your arms. So is Council okay with this? So we're gonna assume, Mr. Clerk, the disposition. Then you're going to go to the disposition column, yeah. and you'll run each row. I just wanted council to know that they need to speak up if they want to speak. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you very much. The next one has to do with the definition of in-camera or closed session. So the terms are often used interchangeably. There's been a request to remove the wording in-camera and only use closed session. I think just because it's clearer. I don't have any concerns with that. I'm happy to remove in-camera unless anyone on council wishes it to stay. Well, unless a majority of council wishes it to stay in, we can just refer to it as closed session.
Councillor Timpson, yeah, speak up, Councillor Timpson, just in case this view disappears and I won't see you.
Okay, you know, I think the advantage of leaving it in as or is that in camera is used elsewhere in the region and in the municipal world. So I think, I mean, there is a value in leaving it there as a definition and just indicating that it's either or. And certainly we're because it's used in camera is used elsewhere, fairly frequently, so there's no confusion. That's what I would see as an advantage.
Yeah, I thought I wondered the same thing, Clerk. What if at the beginning we say, it's like you might define an acronym, but you say closed session is to be used in this bylaw, but it means the same as in camera, which may be used elsewhere. Just say it once at the beginning and then it covers, and is that fair enough? Would that cover you, Councillor Timpson, too?
Yeah, just so that, people that are new to it, reading this, know that they're the same thing.
Great. And now I've changed my view. I can see everybody. I've obliterated part of the screen, but I have it in paper in front of me. So you can wave your hands and I'll see you, Council. So, Clerk, I think removing camera throughout, but have a definition that closed session and in camera could be used interchangeably. You'll get the wording. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, 3.1 talks about that essentially the rules that apply to council also apply to committees. One of the comments we received was that, I think a concern that, stiff procedural rules can stifle, discussion and participation at the committee level. So I sort of addressed that just by saying that section 17.9 of the draft procedure bylaw does say that that the rules apply and are observed in meetings of committees, but it does, I've added emphasis here, but the bylaw does say insofar as they are applicable. So that essentially, if there isn't a need to engage sort of some of the additional procedural measures, then they simply don't have to. So my recommendation is that we just keep the current word.
Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, my only difficulty with that, Brian, is that it contradicts the 3.1 current wording, and maybe you just need a word like notwithstanding the provisions of 3.1, just so, because they do. When I read this, they're contradicting each other. It says explicitly in 3.1 that council can dispense rules of committees by a vote of 2/3. So, and maybe just a connecting word or something that would.
Sure, yeah, I can, in section 17.9, I can add that, notwithstanding section 3.1.
Other council? Good. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Moving along. Okay. Whoops. Moved along a little too quickly there. Okay, so, okay, sorry about that. So section 4.4 talks about the September meeting being held in Hudson. Two comments from members on this one, both sort of the same intent, that the meetings in Hudson may not be required going forward. Staff agrees with that suggestion just because of the low level of public participation. I think that requirement could be removed if that's the will of council.
Councillor Fenelon first. Sorry, Councillor Fenelon, unmute. Thanks. No, not yet. Try the space bar. Not yet. Councillor Fenelon, keep working at it and we'll go to another, I saw another hand or two up. Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, there's no urgency for this because next week we're not going to be in Hudson anyways. I think it would be a courtesy to the advisory committee to take it to them and let them know what we're thinking.
Councillor Fenlon? Any luck with still on mute, Councillor Fenlon? Can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Timpson. If something is on the lines of what I thought that should when I seen it, is that we take it, she says take it to the committee members, and I say if anything goes on, that we should put it on the vote when council has its goes for its new roles in the new year. Put it on the voting list.
On the, sorry, help me with that, Councillor Fenlon, the voting list?
I can't think of the word for it, but it's a word to put something in when you're voting, when people go to the voting.
We'll go to the polls, I see
For a new
that, like a
council.
referendum.
Yes.
Council?
I have no issue with what Councillor Timpson was saying. Either send it to the advisory committee or what Councillor Fenlon was saying. I think we have a representative from Hudson on council for a reason, and if they feel that we should be coming there, then we should be going there.
I guess, sorry, Council, more? Councillor Cassidy?
Yeah, I guess if we're gonna bring this or kick this back to the Hudson Advisory Committee, some stats and whatnot, like I remember the last meeting, I think there was 3 people there, maybe 4. And then just kind of quantify that and then look at the amount of effort and time staff have to spend to pack up shop, move everything there, set up and all that, the kind of what are we getting the most bang for our buck here? Is just some of the consideration that needs to be put in front of the advisory committee on whether or not this is how much value this has for 4 people showing up. Just something to consider.
Further comments?
Yeah, just
Councillor Bansal.
I agree with Councillor Cassidy on that one. I don't really see the value in it. Nobody comes to the meetings, or very, very few people come to the meetings. And it is a terrific amount of work for staff, which I just don't think we need to be burdening with extra work. So I'm okay to take it back to the advisory committee and get a bit of an opinion on it. I certainly don't think it's referendum material, but I think to the advisory committee, I could agree with that.
Further council, Councillor Fenlon.
I think it is material to go on a ballot because there's lots of new people that have moved into town, and there is other people that are expressing some concern out there, you know, asking comments and stuff. You know, what properties are available and stuff like that. So one way or the other, it could be showing that the older people are satisfied with it, but the younger people might have more comment on the issues.
Yeah, I personally, I guess my comments are there. Number 2 there for those reasons, for the staff reasons, the technology reasons, the great amount of work that's taken up going out there, and then the suitability of the venue. And I wonder for what, when I think we've had 1, 2, as I said, the average was 3 Hudson residents. I might be highballing it when I say that. At the same time, if we do have a ward councillor from Hudson, and don't take any offense to this, Don, but I wonder if we're not taking the meetings to Hudson, then maybe we shouldn't have a Hudson ward. And maybe those 2 should almost be tied together. We're going to have a separate ward in Hudson. Maybe then we're saying it deserves a meeting out there. I'm not sure. But I wonder about having a Hudson ward for how many people live in Hudson now? 250, 300?
Not quite that, I don't think.
Yeah. So, you know, you can look at some other areas of distant areas of town. I'm not sure how many are in the Alcona area now, probably maybe 100 between the various residences out there. I'm not sure. Clerk, how do you suggest? And you're right. Somebody said, maybe it was Councillor Fallon or Councillor Timpson, we're not having a meeting there this year, so it's sort of the urgency would be. It's nice to clean it up in the procedural bylaw, but how would you suggest proceeding, Mr. Clerk? Do you have any ideas, sir?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, with respect to the question of a referendum on the topic, and with respect to the question of ward boundary review, that those are exercises that will likely be taking place, spearheaded by the Clerk's Department in late 2022, early 2023, in advance of the next municipal election in 2024. So those particular items.
Well, I think your dates are, the next municipal election, I think, is 2022, isn't it?
Oh, my apologies. Yes. So ward boundary review would be coming up next year. And so at that time, if council made a decision on changing its wards or eliminating one of its remaining wards, that could be looked at and discussed at that time. With respect to the particular clause in the bylaw, if council just wants to leave it in for now and make a decision over the upcoming year, we could always revise the procedure bylaw at a future date. If there is a desire to solicit input from the Hudson Area Advisory Committee, we could leave it in for now and then look at it again in a number of months, or we could get that input, say over the next month or so from the advisory committee and bring the bylaw back for further discussion at a subsequent meeting.
The only proviso that I would put on going to the advisory committee is that I think the clerk, you should be there, or Jackie, whoever is the staff, and you should, somebody talked about having some stats and numbers and also presenting the case for why we're considering discontinuing meetings in Hudson. So, and I don't think that one or two members from the Hudson Advisory Committee should be making this decision. They can inform the decision with their opinion and comments, and we will give them information, but the decision needs to be made at the council table, not at the Hudson Advisory Committee table, in my opinion. So I think for now, the easiest thing to do is just say leave in, and clerk is still on your work list then. And I think I didn't ask for a straw poll, but I think enough councillors spoke up that we know that we're in. Is that kind of get a head nod that this is okay to leave it in?
Yeah.
For now, yeah, and good. I think we're good consensus there, yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. So the next one is section 4.8, which talks about the location of council meetings. So a few comments on this one. One was this should include the ability for members to participate electronically in the meeting given their absence from the municipality. Another comment or question was how would we deal with emergencies such as burst pipes, furnace failure, fire, etc., without canceling an important meeting while unable to meet in chambers to pass the resolution. So on the second one, I just thought I'd deal with that one really quickly here, that the clause provides for a meeting to be held in an alternative venue that is accessible to all members in an emergency. And in this case, emergency means a community emergency as opposed to an individual member's emergency or an emergency at the municipal office. So further to that, and maybe I'll show this other item at the same time as much as I can here. Oh my goodness, okay. And then again, 416 talks about being able to conduct regular special council meetings during a declared emergency. And then comments related to that from members should be in line with the provincial legislation regarding electronic participation, not just within declared emergencies. Recognizing the member may participate in discussions, but not necessarily within a formal vote. Another comment, electronic participation by members while not included as quorum as per the existing provisions of the Municipal Act, please add this. So I just want to provide some legislative updates that have occurred over the summer. So first of all, just a bit of background. As December 17th, 2017 regular council meeting, council received a report from the clerk regarding recent amendments to the Municipal Act at that time. One gave the authority to hold meetings electronically, providing members participate electronically didn't count towards quorum and could not participate in closed session meetings. At that time, council advised the clerk that it did not wish to include that in its procedures. Then in July of this year, the provincial government made further amendments to the Municipal Act, providing greater flexibility for councils to adopt electronic meetings as a standard way of doing business. And I had sent some background materials from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs on that. The other item here that needs to be discussed is proxy voting. So there's a few issues here to look at from staff's perspective with respect to recommendations. My recommendation is that if council wishes to adopt the use of electronic meetings outside of declared emergencies as a meeting format, that we create a section in the procedure bylaw entitled Alternative Meeting Formats. So this section would include information about emergencies as well as other routine use of electronic meetings by council. Council wouldn't, if there's a desire to move in this direction, council will need to provide direction on how many members can participate electronically at any given meeting. Will these members count towards quorum? Will they be permitted to participate in closed sessions? What procedures will be followed if so? Those are some things that would need to be discussed. I recommend talking about electronic meeting participation first, and then we could talk about the proxy voting.
So in particular, Brian, clerk, what, give us a discussion point for electronic meetings so we can focus.
Yes, so in particular, whether or not council wishes to use electronic meetings outside of declared emergencies. I guess that's the first decision point.
And sorry, we don't need to make any changes to allow them during emergencies.
No, that's already provided for in the version of the bylaw that was presented to you.
So the first discussion would be, do we want to use this kind of a meeting format when we don't have an emergency? Is that right? Okay, and
that's correct, yes.
And are we talking about, we would then need to answer some of the, how many, is it for all of council to participate this way or the numbers? So I guess maybe the first question, council, is, do we want to consider the use of electronic meeting formats in any way? So all of us, some of us would be the options, right? And we get into the details of, if we do, we get into the details of how we make that work later. So if you can keep your introductory comments short, and we'll get into details later if necessary. How does council feel? Councillor Timpson.
Yes, we have to consider electronic participation in some format at certain times and etc. But
Okay.
yes.
Councillor Fenlon.
I think it's time to move up a bit and do something with electronic meetings.
Okay.
And,
Good. Yeah, I guess this is valuable because if everybody just says no, then we don't have to discuss any of the details, or there's 5 who say no then. But we'll carry on like this. Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I think for the situation around COVID, when everyone's on the same platform, I think that's fine. I just think we open up too many cans of worms with all the other stuff. I'd rather see it just, we're either all on a digital platform or we're all in the council chambers and just leave it there.
Okay, so that you might be open to electronic meetings in a non-emergency format if all of us were on the same page.
Everyone on the same page. If there's something happened and we had to meet electronically, that's fine. But I think everyone needs to be on the same platform.
Okay. Councillor Howie.
Yes, I'm for electronic participation,
Okay.
both as a group and as an individual, given circumstances.
Councillor Bath.
I pretty much echo Councillor Cassidy's comments. I think we need to be on the same platform. It's not fair to have some people be able to contribute by electronically where others have to come out to the meetings. If it's a snowy, cold day in the wintertime, do I want to come out? Probably not, but I have to come out. And I think that it has to apply to everybody. Everybody needs to be either at the meeting or everybody will be on electronically.
Councillor Lego.
I agree with Councillor Bath and Councillor Cassidy. I think we should only be doing electronic meetings during a stated emergency. Otherwise, we should all be in council. If a person has an issue that they can't make it, they send in their request to Brian saying, I will not be able to make this meeting tonight. That is up to that council member to do so. For me, either we're doing it in chambers and only we would do electronic meetings when there's a stated emergency by the municipality.
So actually, I think the first one who's given that view, Councillor Lego. The others, if I understood correctly, that Councillor Bath and Cassidy said they were open to electronic meetings during non-emergency situations as long as we were all on the same platform. Did I read that right, Councillor Cassidy? Hear you right? Councillor Bath? Sorry, you're on mute, Councillor Bath.
Yeah, that's what I said. I thought about it a little bit since then even, and you know, we keep talking about how we are the grassroots connection to the community. And the minute we go into electronic meetings, we aren't the grassroots connection to the community any longer. We're far away. So we need to look at that very closely, whether this is something we even want to consider.
Okay. And Councillor Lego, you're saying during emergencies only.
Yeah, just like we're in right now.
Okay.
It's a stated emergency by the municipality and this is the only means that we can meet. So this is how we're meeting. Otherwise, we would have been meeting in chambers. So if we can meet in person, we will meet in person.
All right, Councillor Timpson, I saw your hand up.
I think we have to consider seriously our population, and probably 75% of our population travels in their job. And there are going to be times when they simply cannot say no to a travel. We're not like in Toronto where you travel downtown to a meeting, but here you travel up to Northern Community and you could be there for, it's basically very difficult to go and come in the same day. So it's going to happen. And you know, maybe there needs to be some, a protocol around it that, you know, it's just that you don't, not that you just don't feel like coming to a meeting, but that your work requirements, because, you know, we want to attract people that represent our population to be on this council and to participate. But if they, you know, if they're losing money by canceling a trip short, we're not going to have people, we're not going to have a representation on our council. But I think we could do it with some sort of protocols. Again, we have to reflect the fact that we are unique. We continue to talk about how unique we are. So our policies need to reflect how unique we are. And that also goes for if we want to have Aboriginal representation on council. The Aboriginal people that work in town here, for the most part, are traveling a lot. So I think we have to look at how we can do this so that it works. And you know, and I agree, sometimes we have to be, we don't want people just who can't be bothered coming, but we have to look at our population. I would think that it wouldn't necessarily also have to be an emergency. For example, if we have to call a special meeting, say on Monday we get a call, can people come to a special meeting Wednesday? Well, if you're already planning to travel, you're going to have, you can't, it's pretty hard to cancel your travel trip, but then we could all be on a special meeting, or you could have the one person on at that special meeting. So, I mean, I think we have to be really flexible given where we are. I mean, our workplace is sometimes 500 kilometers north of here. So I think we have to really think about that, about what this town is about and what our workforce is about and the kind of people we want to be on this council. That's basically what I'm feeling about it.
Just before I go to you, Councillor Cassidy, I agree with some of what you said, Councillor Timpson. However, I disagree completely with your statistic that 75% of the people travel north for their work here or travel for their work. I think you look at there's a lot of people who travel, but it's not 75%. I would. Whatever,
50%. Whatever,
but,
you know,
I don't think it's. I don't
you work
think
for Okanagan, you work for the health authority.
If you work for the hospital or you work for the schools, the education center, there's very few who travel. You work for the municipality, you work for, so I think you need to be careful throwing out a number like that. It's not accurate. I think it's
okay. I think
a lot of people travel, but
yeah, it's a moot point to the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, just as I didn't want to leave 75% travel for their work hanging in the air as if it was a fact.
Okay.
Councillor Cassidy.
Someone who does travel for the work and was 500 kilometers north of here the other week working, it comes down to planning and managing your schedule. We know in advance of when meetings are. Some meetings come up short notice. I've had to miss a couple because of other work commitments. It's part of the responsibility I took when I ran and put my name forward. I do my best. I know, when our meetings are, I plan my schedule around there. Most workplaces are fairly good with work-life balance, and you manage around it. I don't plan trips or field times when I know I have council meetings coming up and the time even beforehand for prep and everything like that. It's just managing your time and your schedule. And I do have a fair bit on my plate as well with outside of council responsibilities. And I feel like I make most of the meetings and I'm in person and I make the effort to show. So it's just part of the commitment you do and how you manage your schedule. So I still stand by everyone on the same platform, whether it's in person or on here. The only reason I said on the same platform and not under declared emergencies is because things can happen where there might not be an emergency, but we need another venue for a meeting, and this might be the venue for that meeting if we need to get a meeting done without postponing it so we can keep our agenda moving and not backlog things. This could work as a secondary venue. That's my only thoughts on that. So I'll leave that there.
Councillor Lego.
I'll change my opinion to match Councillor Cassidy's. I didn't really think that through, that sometimes there might be just that one time where we need to all meet and this would be the best venue to meet at. So if we can put that in, then let's put that in.
I'm wondering, okay, Councillor Howie. Councillor Howie?
Yes. So, I mean, I am all for the electronic participation. I think it makes sense. We've been doing it under this emergency measure, and many of us have expressed how well it works. So that is a point to everyone being on the same platform electronically. And as a council, like, we are permitted to meet electronically under the Municipal Act. It's legislated. We can, and I think we should amend our bylaws to represent the modern age we're in. Also, as a council, we want to encourage people to participate. We want people that are diverse in our community, people like Councillor Tim said that are traveling north from all walks of life, the professional that travels to a northern community 2 to 3 times a week, which is what I previously did with the health authority, and people that are having to travel to another city or for a conference or meeting or whatever. And with the way that things are currently headed, if under our current situation with our bylaw, that would restrict an individual to have to choose between either going to this meeting, attending a meeting in another city, and or staying for a council meeting. I think it works perfectly for the person to attend electronically. The whole argument around being a grassroots and we need to meet physically in a room to be grassroots to the community, I think is flawed, because we've seen on our Facebook, by live streaming these meetings, I was sent a screenshot after our last meeting while we discussed electronic participation with 86 views at that current time. That means there's 86 people tuning in to watch our discussion. And since then, we've seen that from our August 19th meeting, there's 758 views, July 15th, 452, July 7th, 314. So we have a large group of the community, I mean, outside of the community, maybe viewing these meetings. And I like what Joyce cited, there are many people in our community, and maybe it's not 75, maybe it's not 50, but from our council right here, from people that have spoken, that's 29% of our council table have to travel for work. So I think that electronic participation makes sense. And I think as an individual or as a group, I think we should amend our bylaw to accommodate that.
Councillor Legal.
Are we able, so say once we get back to having meetings in council chamber, are we able to put that live on Facebook? Do we have the technology now to do that?
Yes, through you, Mayor Lawrence. That's what's planned. We did. We used to have all the council meetings, and they're all available. They were recorded, and then they were uploaded the following day. I would have to double check the system that we have now through eScribe. I don't recall offhand if it's a live stream or if it's a recording and then posted the following day. Jackie, do you recall that particular detail offhand? Are you there, Jackie?
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out this. I believe there's an option whether to go the next day, but I'd have to look at that further.
Okay. Thanks. So we could look at that. And even if that is the case, if it is sort of recorded, indexed, and then made available the next day, that still wouldn't preclude us from, basically setting up someone's iPhone and live streaming the meeting in addition to having it recorded and available the next day. So having people view the meeting can be done live from council chambers as well. Yeah, I think that was the question. So I just wanted to, sorry, that was a long way around.
All right, council. So I think I'm going to just pose a question here. I'm wondering about the support for, or lack of support for, that at this time we changed the procedural bylaw to allow the use of electronic meetings in emergencies or at any other time that council deems it required, and that it be for the participation of all councillors. So, sorry, I'm not getting this right. I'm thinking that it's the regular council meetings are held in chambers, in person, in chambers, unless there's something comes up that council deems that we need to meet electronically and everybody meets electronically. Special council meetings could be held virtually, electronically, if schedule requires it and it's deemed appropriate. So that those in-between meetings, if there's a sudden need for a meeting and somebody's schedule is that they're traveling, we would do a virtual meeting, or for whatever reason you think it's better to do a virtual meeting. I mean, I don't like the idea of some in person and some in virtual. I'm not in favor of that. So I support basically what Councillor Lego and Cassidy have said. I think I like the in-person meetings, the regular meetings in chamber, but allow the electronic meetings, especially if there were special meetings and the schedule was tight. Not that they have to be virtual, but there is the allowance that they could be. Clerk, could you summarize that in any way for council to consider? Because I think that's more or less might be what the if not the consensus, the compromise position might be at this point.
Sure. So essentially, as I understand it, there would be a provision in the bylaw to provide for electronic meetings outside of emergencies, with the provisions that all members participate on the electronic platform for that, and that it be used at the discretion of council, potentially for special meetings.
Yeah, but regular meetings be always in chambers as per the schedule set out on an annual basis.
Okay.
So my sense is, I'm just Councillor Lego, would you support that?
Yes, I would support that.
Councillor Cassidy?
Yes.
Any other councillors? Councillor Bath?
Yes, I would.
Councillor Fanlon?
Yes, it's moving ahead a bit.
It's and I'm going to Councillor Timpson and Councillor Cassidy last because I sensed you want more than that, but and you don't have to support this at all. But that seems to be where council's at this time. Comments from Councillor Timpson or Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a move forward, but I think that we need to think of some way in which we can accommodate people who do travel a lot. There may be an emergency that they need to deal with up north, and it's the week of a council meeting. And maybe there's a way of having some guidelines about when it's used. But I think we need to think about that aspect of our community. I don't think it'd be very difficult to come up with some guidelines and protocols for when it would be permitted that you could be on.
I think that what you've heard is the majority of council doesn't want that separation, either all in or all out. Councillor Howard?
I agree, but I just don't know that people are appreciating how much people travel in this town.
I think you've made your point, and council has heard you, Councillor Timpson. Councillor Howard?
Yeah, so I mean, I do oppose the proposed position. I think that individual participation would allow for a councillor or a mayor even to be involved from a distance, to have the voices that they represent heard at the council table, not shut out maybe because of the work or the lifestyle that they're pursuing, and which in a large part for many of us is why we were elected to the position that we're in. I mean, we do have an election coming up in 2 years, and all of us or some of us may be out of a job. So things can change.
Okay, I'm not sure what that last. Oh, I see a council job. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Howard. I wouldn't mind that much. I think. So I think, Clerk, do you want to tell me how we move this along? I think we have a position on all in for the regular meetings remain as they are, as scheduled in chambers. We allow electronic meetings for special meetings as appropriate. And when we have those electronic meetings, everybody's on the electronic platform. Is that correct?
Yep.
Is that, and with that, I guess, do you have other questions that need answering here? How many members can participate? We've answered that. Carry on, go through your list.
Sure. The question of will these members count towards quorum? The answer is yes, because everyone will be participating that way.
Yep.
Will these members be able to participate in closed session? So again, if everyone's participating, then yes. And let's see what else we may have here. This one, again, we would have to lose a quorum. So we're no issues here. Number 4, and unless council wants procedures to be put in place if someone loses their connection, my recommendation is that they attempt to try to rejoin. If they can, great, and if they can't, well, yeah, they can't, I guess.
It'll I've seen a little bit of this on it. It'll begin to derail the whole meeting. Either they can resolve their issue or they can't, or they keep trying, but I don't think you can wait for somebody because
Right.
it becomes, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Form of electronic participation, telephone, video conference.
My recommendation to council would be some form of video conference, just because it is more transparent.
So by video conference. So I'll quickly go. Councillor Cassidy, you okay with this?
Yes.
Councillor Lego,
Yes.
Councillor Bath,
Most of it. The biggest concern I have is we need to be specific if it's going to be video conference or not. I agree it must be video conference, because in order to have the transparency. And the other one I am very concerned about is the closed session meeting portion of the meeting. Is we have no way, particularly if it's not video conference, we have no way of knowing that the person who you're speaking to and is in the meeting alone. We have a hard enough time keeping our closed session information private as it is. So when we don't know even who's in the room, then it's going to be very difficult. So I would say we need to spend a little bit of time discussing how we're going to do closed session meetings, whether they should even be allowed electronically, unless it's the whole group. Because as you know, and when we do the whole group now, we go into the special little secret little room and we're quiet and nobody knows what we're doing. But on the other hand, if we're all on our own service, we could do whatever we like, really. So I think that's something we need to spend a bit of time talking about before we include that.
Clerk, any comments there?
Certainly, I think I think Councillor Bath raises some very valid points, and my recommendation would be to be even more specific and not just video conference, but in particular Zoom as the preferred platform.
Okay, so then, and that resolves that issue. Although there might be somebody just to the right of Councillor Bath right now whispering in his ear or giving him hand signals that I can't see. I mean, even though we're in the same electronic room, I don't know who's in the room in front of Councillor Howie waving at him, you know, or behind me. It's we take the oath of office and we assume we're in. We honor it, but using the same platform makes sense that we're on Zoom. Okay, Councillor Fanlon.
Good with some of it. I'm not, people on vacation and stuff like that and out of province, stuff like that. People, I don't think we should include them because they're away. They're not in the province in itself.
I guess if we're doing a special meeting where we're allowing people to come in electronically, would it matter where they were?
Yes and no. Depends on vacations. Can't be counted because you could be anywhere in the world. Yeah. And you know, it could be, you could end up not coming to a council meeting through the whole year.
Well, no, the regular council meetings are in person.
Yes.
These electronic ones would only be for a special council meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep.
Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, just a question for the clerk there, Brian. When we talk about special council meetings, that I'm okay with that. But again, what if we have a burst pipe, the heat's off in the council? Is that considered an emergency, small C emergency, or a big C emergency under the Emergency Act? Like what, is that when we can also use electronic, or because just the way it's worded there, it says you have to have a resolution to change where your meeting is going to be. But it's under the big E emergency.
Right. Through you, Mayor Lawrence. Yes, Councillor Timpson. If there is inability to meet at the municipal office because of there's a fire or a flood or the temperature's off or the power goes out or whatever the case may be, council can choose to change its venue without passing a resolution, that would be an emergency situation facing the council. So small e emergency. Big E emergency is only when either the municipality or the province declares a state of emergency under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act.
So we would be, I think what Councillor Tim says, under a small D emergency, we could hold an electronic meeting if necessary.
Yes, and that would then, if that's viable, we have encountered this in the past where there's been a power outage. It was 2 or 3 summers ago for the July regular council meeting. There was a power outage, and the decision was made to cancel the meeting and hold it the following day or the day after or something like that because, one, an alternative venue couldn't be located. Because remember, the alternative venue would also have to be fully accessible. And there aren't that many venues in town available that could even accommodate a council meeting that would also be fully accessible. So those are a few other considerations. So if there was something really urgent that needed to be dealt with, that at a regular meeting, there was some type of event that precluded meeting in council chambers, as clerk, what I would recommend is that the mayor call a special meeting to deal with those items from the regular meeting that were time sensitive or otherwise had to be dealt with. Then it would be a special meeting that could be held electronically based on the conversation that we've been having to date.
I think that's good. Councillor Timpson?
Yeah, you just might need a connecting word there, Brian, that, to differentiate between the big E and the small e emergencies where
Sure, and sorry, again, Councillor Timpson, which clause is that?
4.8.
Okay.
It says, the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act within the confines of a declared small e emergency, or I would say here, or where the municipal office is otherwise not accessible, the council shall be asked to meet at an identified location. But just to clarify that you wouldn't need a resolution for that, because it's the way it's written, it just sounds like we need a resolution to because the pipes burps, we have to go somewhere else, but we can't meet to do the resolution. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just not. Sure,
I'll add or in there as you've suggested. I think that would clarify either or, either big E or small.
Yeah, and that the small emergency doesn't need, well, no resolution is necessary or something like that.
Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure we're okay before we move on. Clerk, could you just summarize what you've taken as the direction here?
Certainly. So from what I understand of council's decision, going forward, regular meetings will be held in council chambers. Special meetings may be held via electronic means, providing that all members participate electronically, or that the meeting would be structured so that it is an electronic meeting. And I will change the wording of section 4.8 to clarify the difference between big and small e emergency. And then I will also include provisions that these electronic meetings would happen, via a Zoom platform, and so on and so forth. Those other matters that we discussed in those 1 to 4 items, the specific questions that I had would also be reflected.
I guess what I'm asking council is not if you agree with this, but if you agree that that was what was the general consensus of council. Anybody disagree that that was more or less what we came to as either the majority view, and now you're saying yes, Councillor Howie, that's more or less?
I just have a question related to the specifics of electronic special council meetings. At what or how is the decision made to hold it electronically versus in chambers? What is the deciding factors around that?
I'm looking at you, Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, it's a great question. That is another question that council will have to decide. If there's going to be criteria that would trigger an electronic meeting, or whether it's going to be at the discretion of the head of council, or how that decision is going to be made.
Now we get into murky waters of how that's to be made.
If you like, Mayor Lawrence, staff can go back and give this some thought and come forward with some potential criteria that council could consider including in the bylaw to determine when a special meeting via Zoom would be triggered.
Sure, I guess my only, yeah, that would be great. And my advice would be keep it as broad and non-specific as you can so that all options are sort of open. It's a matter of how we get to the decision that we can do it. Is it the clerk? The clerk has the power to decide, the CAO, head of council, does it take a vote of council? But I think the criteria should be fairly broad so that we don't sort of put this option on the table and then make it so narrow that we never use it. If we're going to put it on the table, then it should be available for use, right? I'm not sure. Yep, you're good. So you'll come, staff will come. How does that impact us moving forward here? The need for some more staff time here.
Yeah, so we will work on that criteria and a recommended process for making that decision. I'm afraid that I mean the easiest thing procedurally would be that a special meeting to be held via Zoom would have to be determined by council at a meeting, at a regular meeting of council. However, that could be very problematic because often special meetings arise without notice and there is no prior meeting, or there's not an opportunity to meet to vote on whether or not, what venue, whether it be in person or online, that's going to happen. So,
right now you do a Google poll is that the Google, a doodle poll, sorry, to determine whether councillors are available or not. Could it not be as simple as a doodle poll, or a poll of council to determine if you're available for a special meeting via Zoom? And you're putting the question out. I guess, why are we doing it via Zoom? Who's determined that that's,
Yeah.
Needs some staff time with recommendations, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've given you general direction on how to move here, and you have to come back with some recommendations on how we trigger the going into one of those electronic meetings. Fair enough, council? I see some glum faces and saying, yeah, okay, let's go. Move on.
Worship. Your Worship,
Hello, CAO.
if I may just be excused for a few moments.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Excuse for a few moments. I have to get my my adapter for my computer or I'll run out of battery.
3 minute break. How long do you need, Councillor Timpson? Electronic meetings, wonderful.
I need to go talk to my football coach.
I need to go to talk to my life coach. You think we're halfway through, Clerk?
Well, we're on page 3 of 20.
No. How many of these are actually, I recognize that was going to be a time-consuming one, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be one of the longer ones. I suspect other things will go a little more quickly.
We still have the dress code coming up.
Yes.
The Zoom, I think one of the requirements for the dress, everybody has to stand up and show their full body. I'm worried that people are sitting there in their pajama bottoms or something. You know?
If they are, do we really want that broadcast?
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah. Sit down, Joe. Sit down.
I had to get my coffee.
I'll give this another minute or 2 minutes. I think I said 3 for Councillor. Oh, there you're back, Councillor Simpson. You're back.
$41 points to go.
Thank you for that.
I have three.
Not that we're counting.
Who's counting, eh?
3 discussion points for each of them. I'm ready.
All right, so we're back on. Councillor Simpson, you ready? Looks good. Go ahead, Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Lawrence. So the other item, and again, sorry to belabor this particular section, but it is my responsibility to bring to Council's attention the fact that the province has provided now for proxy voting. So that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention. I don't know whether or not you wish to provide for that. For this council, my recommendation is that you do not provide for proxy voting. There are a number of concerns. You know, one of the key difficulties, and members have shared this, you know, in some of their comments about public participation, is that if the member isn't there to hear the discussion, oftentimes, or at least from what I hear from certain members, is that oftentimes their final decision is influenced by the discussion that happens around the table. And that can't happen with a proxy vote. You have to make a decision before the meeting and give your proxy to another member, and they vote on your behalf throughout the meeting. So, you know, information could come to light during the meeting that you didn't know going in, which may have affected how you would vote on the item. But unfortunately, your vote's already been, essentially, it's been cast before the meeting because someone's holding your proxy.
Can you just define proxy voting for us?
Sorry. Yes, of course. So essentially, proxy voting means that someone isn't able to attend the meeting and they ask another member to vote on their behalf.
On just a specific item or all items?
For it to work, it would have to be all items.
And they would have to record their vote ahead of time, which way they intend to vote?
That's correct. And it's the legislation identifies that it's if councils choose to move forward with this, that it's the responsibility of the clerk to determine how it will work and to develop the procedures around it, not council.
All right, so let's just move this quickly and see. Is there, how many councillors are in favor of considering proxy voting? Are there any councillors in favor of considering proxy voting? And just to be doubly sure, how many councillors do not want to consider proxy voting? There, you got your direction, Clerk?
Yeah, I can't see everyone, but I
Oh,
think...
sorry. So I can, and I know there was a majority that did not want to consider proxy voting, and I saw no hands raised who wanted to consider proxy voting.
Okay, terrific. So we're finished with that one. Okay. This is another one that may take a bit of time. So the wording of section 4.9 states that members of the council and its committees shall, meetings of council and its committees shall be open to the public, with the exception of those meetings that are provided within section 410, 411, and as provided for under the closed meeting provisions under the Municipal Act. The comment was transparency and public input are encouraged. To maintain public interest in attending meetings, their ability to speak at meetings should be explicit. Accommodating public input into virtual meetings in real time would add to transparency. So a bit of background from staff here. The ability for members of the public to speak to items on the agenda without being a delegation was introduced in Sioux Lookout around 2004. Prior to that, it was never permitted. The practice of allowing members of the public to speak to items on the agenda without being a delegation is regarded by pretty much everybody in the municipal fields, all the experts, George Cuff, Fred Dean, Niles Belchamber, on and on and on and on and on, as a very poor practice. Staff recommends the elimination of public participation in this format at council meetings. There are far better methods of public engagement that actually give value to the input and perspective of the public. Council has identified public engagement as a priority in a strategic plan, and so it's assumed that such engagement is intended to be meaningful. It's very difficult to receive meaningful input in this type of a format. In fact, this type of engagement isn't even really engagement. True engagement takes a lot of effort and commitment. It involves outreach. It involves efforts to include those who normally, would face barriers to participation. I think if council is truly committed to engagement, it needs to look at how it's going to engage, and just allowing people to speak sort of off the cuff to items of the agenda, without sort of any prior context or any background information, or it really puts the public at a disadvantage and really calls into question the value of that input.
So thanks, Clerk. Yep, Councilor Lego.
I actually enjoy hearing from the public at our meetings. I think our chair does a very good job, which is usually the mayor, does a very good job of having people, or giving people a chance to state their piece, especially on contentious issues. And he usually gets it moving. Sometimes it goes a bit longer than it should, but majority of the time they're allowed to speak their piece and we make the final decision at the table. A lot of the times what they're saying, not really swaying, because like you said, sometimes a lot of the information is not known. The public doesn't know a lot of the information, but I think it's an important piece of allowing them to speak at the council meetings.
Councillor Timpson?
Yes, I totally agree with Councillor Lego. Democracy, people need to see democracy in action, and particularly we're the government closer to the people. And people don't come very often to meetings. When they do, I like hearing what they have to say. In fact, there's been members from the public who have known more about the issue than the information that I've received in the reports. And I think to be allowed to come to a meeting and not being able to speak would be very offensive. It would feel like I'm there just to see what you've decided about me. Yes, we have to have more engagement, but there's, maybe we've had one, maybe two public meetings a year, if that. We have our committees, but I think there's nothing like allowing people to come and watch democracy in action. And democracy doesn't end at the ballot box. That we're just not there to do what we think we need to do. We need to know where the public is at. So I support that we should be the public should be permitted to speak, and I agree with Councillor Lego. It's handled well. The only time in my 14 years on council that I've seen it go out of whack was when the public was not permitted to speak. That's when things go, when you don't give people a voice. So I fully support that we keep public comments in our council meetings.
Councillor Cassidy, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I also agree. I think public input is actually, it shows our accountability and our transparency to the public and their meetings and what they bring forward. I do agree there may be some stuff that's not really applicable, and I also do feel that the comments and the nature of the comments and are handled well. And I personally haven't seen anything that has been out of line or I think it's good. I have no issues with the public, and I understand the experts might think it's poor practice, but I think being accountable to the people and giving people a voice is what we're here for. And I know we're elected, and we're supposed to be our voice, but I'm still accountable to everyone that elected me and those that didn't for the full 4 years of my term. So if they want to come to a council meeting because they have that much passion or concern over something at the table, I'm fine with hearing from them. So.
Councillor Howie.
I absolutely support the opinion of the public in meetings, not necessarily within a delegation, and I absolutely value it. Like Councillor Lego said, you know, at the end of the day, we are the decision makers, but it's great to hear everyone's voice.
Councillor Fanlon.
Last, I don't know, 2 terms that participation in Sullicote has picked up at council meetings immensely now. And they're more in tune with what council is doing at their meetings, and their responses are great. Eh? That's all I can say.
Councillor Bath.
I'm torn a little bit on it. I certainly agree that there's points come out from the public, and a certain emotion comes out. One of the concerns I have is that when it goes off the rails, the one person who gets nailed with it is the mayor or the chair always, and then in a sense that's not fair, because it's, you know, we need to have some rules around it, because otherwise it becomes the mayor's decision really to shut somebody down, and that's not completely fair to the rest of us. We can listen to all these comments, and there's no heat really comes back. But all the heat comes back to the chair of the meeting. So I think if we allow this to remain, and I'm okay with that, but we need to have some rules around time and people repeating the same thing over and over again. And I think that's all I say. I want to see it. I want to see the public be open, and I want to see them be part of what we're doing. But I don't want the blame to be placed. And I know a couple of years ago, the blame was certainly placed on our mayor. And I don't think that's fair for him.
Councillor Lego.
Is there a way for council to make that decision at the table where we all would vote that would be the end of public comment? So less higher is pointed towards one person, one elected person, that we make a collective decision.
I think that, and Mr. Perk, you can help me here. I think the chair can call a point of order, or any council member can call a point of order. It doesn't have to be on a point of order regarding the council table. It could be a point of order regarding a member of the public. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor Lawrence.
And then it would proceed through that kind of a process, which would be all of the council table if required. Yeah,
Correct.
okay. So, I mean, I think I would lay down and die 2 years to get this changed, but I can see around the table it's not going to change. So it's a matter of accommodating that. And a couple of my concerns, as well as, and I think Councillor Bath maybe stated it in some ways, that you feel like you're on the hot seat a bit. And when do you step in and say, look, that you're being rude to staff, you're being rude to the council table, or when do you say that's enough? We've already heard these points. How many people do you have? If it's not a delegation, you could have 6 members of the public stand up and say the same thing, and they'd be entitled to say the same thing because they're not a member of a group. They're representing themselves. And I think we're staying with the public coming to meetings. I don't think we're going to change that. But my concern also is that the erosion, I would say the erosion of democracy in some ways, where we are elected to represent the people. And if John Smith or Jane Doe can come to every single meeting and talk to every single item on the agenda without having put their names forward and put forward a platform and had taken an oath of office and having accountability, why would I bother to run for council? I can go to the council meetings and get my opinion out there every single meeting on every single item on the agenda. I realize I'm taking that to perhaps the extreme, but it is, to me, it's a bit of a slippery slope. And you'll get 1 or 2 members who are very keen, and they know a lot more than you do, let me assure you, and they'll come out to every meeting and they'll have comments on 1, 2, 5 items. And their voice is on the record, just as your voice is. And they're unelected. They represent nobody except themselves. It's just my concern, and it's almost like it's a demeaning of the position of councillor, of the election process, of the democratic process. I think democracy is witnessed. It's exercised every 4 years at the polls by voting and by people running for election, putting their names forward, getting elected or not elected. That's then it's taken to the table, to the council table, and you are the people who are in a transparent process. And transparency doesn't mean being engaged with the public coming in and being engaged. It means the public is up. We do everything in the open. It's transparent. You can see what we're doing. It's not behind doors, closed deals or whatever. It's transparent. The debate is transparent. Council's discussion and decision is there to see. That's transparency. It doesn't mean 13 members of the public being engaged in the discussion at the council table. To me, that's participatory democracy, not representative democracy. And then it's protected, I think, by the processes and procedures and by staff and the administration and the bureaucracy. That's what protects the policies, procedures, and keeps council on track. But Councillor Nagel, you have your hand up. You'll have to unmute, Councillor Nagel. To be transparent, you'll have to unmute and let us know what you're saying.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Thank you. Can there be a time limit put on public commentary? And also, to me, they can't talk on every item because they only can talk on the items that we lift. So I know that there's only certain items that we lift for each meeting. So,
Clerk.
Yes, sir.
Through Mayor Lawrence, sorry, Councillor Lego, it doesn't often happen, but it has happened in the past. Actually, members can lift items. Members of the public can lift items, even if council doesn't, if they wish to speak to them. At least that's how it is right now. Maybe that's something council wants to change.
Well, I'd be in favor of changing that, and I think right now the way the current procedural bylaw, the one that you've brought to the table over the last, doesn't allow for the public to speak at meetings. You're going to have to add it back. Is that right?
That's correct.
You can add it back with some limitations that respect what council has said here and respects the public's ability to participate in a meaningful but appropriate manner. Is that?
Certainly.
And I think this will have to come back again, as with the previous item that we finished off with 15 minutes ago. Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, just a thought on this too is I understand what you're getting at with this, Mayor Lawrence, too. Maybe just kind of a meeting in the middle is something along with Councillor Lego suggested, is that there's a time limit, and maybe it's something that they have to identify that they want to speak to an item on the agenda prior to, and so it doesn't turn into just piggybacking on each other type of deal. If you have a comment to make about it and whatnot, you submit your name to the clerk before or at the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, and then if that item is lifted, then there's a chance that's when it can be spoken to. just a suggestion.
So clerk, you can come back with some recommendations on that.
Certainly.
Councillor Cassidy, you made me think of something else, but now I've,
Okay.
Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, we don't want it to be a raucous, but I have never, other than maybe very few times, has it ever been a raucous. And I mean, it just, if we want people to come to meetings, they need to know that their opinion is valued, is listened to. And that to me is the bottom line. And I don't think it's not, I wouldn't call it participatory democracy. It's basically just listening to people, listening to other views. And that's all I have to say. So I'm glad that we could, having some guidelines might be useful. So I'll look forward to those. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just another comment. The general public, anybody can knock on or call, email any of us, councillors, mayor, any of us, staff, anytime they want. And I do object to people coming to the meetings and asking a question or getting information that, well, why didn't you just go knock on Councillor Timpson's door or knock on the public work manager's door or call them or send them an email? If that, I think we need to somehow, it's not an information bureau for somebody who wants to know what the size of pipe is leading to that service. Sorry, it's anyway, with some guidelines, with some appropriate guidelines. I guess that's where we're going. So clerk, you'll come back with recommendations regarding this. So
Certainly.
it's on this, you will be revising section 4.9.
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Lego.
Yeah, just with some guidelines and conduct by members of the public. Is that going to be put in there?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, the section that speaks about conduct does apply both to members sitting around the table and members attending in the gallery. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
All right. Moving along, clerk.
Okay, next item. 4.9.1, all council meetings are open to the public and shall be recorded without note or comment on all resolutions, decisions, and other proceedings and kept for archival purposes. The question was, can we have some more clarity? Essentially, it's routine language. It speaks to the requirement to have minutes for every meeting. And one of the things about getting questions submitted in advance, which is really helpful in some ways, but it also sometimes is challenging because I'm not able to say, can you let me know more about what you're asking? So if I haven't addressed this appropriately, please feel free to ask more questions.
The member or members who asked this question, are you okay with this? No?
Yeah, for me, I had to read it about 3 times, just kind of the way it seems a little choppy to me. But after I read it a few more times here and with your comment, it's fine now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Yeah, it's one of those times where you actually just take the wording right out of the legislation shall be recorded without note or comment on all resolutions. So, yeah, we just stole from the Municipal Act for that wording, and so I blame the province for the choppy wording of that one.
I support that.
Thanks. Okay. Any?
No, we're good.
Would you like me to move on, Mayor Lawrence?
Yep.
Okay. Conduct. Sorry. Of members at electronic meetings shall be governed by this bylaw, and procedures shall be adhered to with modifications as required to facilitate the electronic meeting. Again, it just talks about being present. If you have to leave the electronic meeting, same as you would an in-person meeting, you let the chair know. You ask, you get permission from the chair to leave the meeting, which is important for quorum and all that kind of stuff. So The comment was include the following wording: must be conducted in a venue that is conducive to municipal meeting expectations. Staff's feedback: staff has provided some guidelines to members regarding online participation in council meetings. However, if council wishes specific wording to be included, staff does not object. So the specific wording would be must be conducted in a venue that is conducive to municipal meeting expectations, was what was suggested by a member.
Councillor Thompson.
Is that sort of like not in your baby's nursery room with the baby crying in the background? I mean, it's, that's how
I
I
believe
interpret.
that's the intent, but
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily targeting babies, I hope.
Not in your bedroom or wherever.
So it doesn't sound like
I think also, and again, I don't want to presume to know what the member was thinking, but I think it also probably talks about stuff like, you know, appropriate lighting so we can see you, and, you know, your camera is fixed in such a way that we actually see your face as opposed to your forehead, and you know, unlike the clerk, don't dump into the logo, you know, that type of thing.
I think it's a reasonably minor change, and it looks like it's acceptable to all. So let's move on. No objections. We're moving on.
Terrific. Oops. Okay, so in sections 5.3b and 5.4e, it talks about roles of the, I believe, clerk and CAO in this case, and it talks about performing other such duties as assigned by the municipality. Members' comments said, should this not say council and not municipality? Yeah, so in reference to matters delegated to the CAO and clerk, yes, it can be changed to council. My recommendation is that we change these two sections to read council and not municipality.
I assume that satisfies the member who put that forward. So unless I see hands waving, we'll move on. Oh, good. Yep. Let's move on.
Okay. 5.1.1 through 5.1.5 and 6.1.1, 6.1.2, 6.1.3, and section 20 on vacancies. So all sort of talks about specific roles and responsibilities of members of council. So here's the feedback we received from members. Are these really necessary in the procedure bylaw? They appear to be more in line with the code of conduct. Number two, deal with general roles, not legislative requirements of roles during council meetings as stated as mandatory in the staff report. 3, why does the procedure bylaw have rules that apply outside of meetings? 4, not, that should say not note, my apologies. Not related to meetings. And 5, doesn't fit the title of the bylaw. Staff's feedback on that. So the municipality's accountability framework includes the procedure bylaw, council's code of conduct, as well as a series of policies, notice requirements, accountability, council staff relations, et cetera, et cetera. So the intent is to have the various documents be complementary to each other. These are typical clauses in newer procedure bylaws, and they are excerpts from legislation to help clarify council's and staff's roles. Additionally, the information regarding vacancies is included because council does have a role to play in determining how the vacancy will be filled. Essentially, staff recommends these sections stay in. One of the reasons just sort of came up in the last discussion: if these types of things, this conduct and what's appropriate at the meeting and so on and so forth, if it's not in there, then we can't hold anyone to account. So it's another reason why it's important to include this type of thing in the bylaw.
Any questions from council? Staff's recommendation is not to revise this, and they've provided the explanation. So unless I think council and the members are satisfied. Oh, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check on it. It seemed to me there was a section on the role of the CAO.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed to be excessive, and you know, if we wanted to shorten the bylaw. Those sections that are identified here just don't seem to fit. However, and as far as
The role
I see,
of the clerk and CAO are included again, you know, because they do have that, I guess, special relationship with council, unlike a number of the other staff.
yeah, it just to me it seemed out of place. If it needs to stay in, that's fine too.
Okay, so staff's recommendation remains no revision. And council seems all right with that. Good, let's move on.
Oops. Okay. Section 7.3 of the bylaw states, no member shall criticize any decision of the council except for the purpose of moving that the question be reconsidered. Comments we received, I believe this should be removed as independently elected representatives. I feel council members should be able to disagree with the decisions made by council and be able to publicly express their disagreement or dissatisfaction. Staff's comments. So the rationale for the inclusion of this section is rooted in the laws governing how council makes decisions. Council speaks with one voice. No individual member of council has any more authority or power, essentially, than a member of the public. All decisions are council decisions. As the Municipal Councillor's Guide talks about, you know, and it's reinforced in there, essentially your powers are executed at a duly constituted meeting. Even if you all happen to agree, in this case is the example they use, it still doesn't bind the municipality. That's why we have council meetings. That's why we pass resolutions. That's why we pass bylaws. They are the legal instruments with which council acts. And I guess to clarify, you know, it's perfectly okay for members of council to let the public know their reasons for voting against a certain motion, but they're still expected to uphold the decision of council. It's a decision of council, as are all decisions. Once the vote is taken, it's a decision of council, because otherwise there is no decision. No individual member has any more authority than any member of the public, essentially.
Councillor Howie, and then Councillor Lego.
Yeah, so my take on that, and I mean, I was the individual that gave these comments, was that I think criticize might be the wrong word. Maybe I think that if for example, if after this meeting, someone asked me about electronic participation and why am I for or against it, you know, I could explain that. I think criticize might have a negative connotation. I'm criticize any decision by council. I'm still going to uphold the decision if we decide to have in-person meetings. I'm going to attend the in-person meetings. Like my disagreement with it or justification for disagreement, I think some kind of amendment could be made to change just that criticize. I think can freely express their disagreement, but obviously within appropriate means.
Councillor Lego, and then Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I think at the time while we're voting, and if we strongly disagree with one of the motions, we have the right to ask for a recorded vote. So that would be on the public record. So to me, that would be your way of saying, well, it's on the public record, but I stand with, we stand with what the final outcome of council is, what the vote is. So I think that would be an option, would be if you strongly disagree with a motion, ask for a recorded vote. That's on the public record, but still at the end of the day, whatever the way council votes, that's the democracy that it is. So that's what we accept. That ruling is what we accept.
Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, no, I agree with the two speakers before me. I wonder if it could be addressed by that last sentence under staff comments that says it really explains what it's about. When I read this, no member shall criticize any decision of the council. That to me is almost scary. No law should ever state that nobody should criticize what a government has done, even if it's a member of the government. I mean, we're facing what happens to people that criticize governments these days and in the move towards authoritarianism. So it's just really the wording. And I think the way you worded it at the end of the staff comments there is really, that might if you just transpose that over into the current wording, it would capture what it means. Because really it's all about that you disagree vehemently, but you aren't going to do anything to undercut the decision. That's really what it's about. So I just a change of wording, I would suggest.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I do. I think the word is it's open-ended on how you interpret criticize. What is criticism in this sense? Is like members of council may publicly advise of the reason for voting against it. But if I state my reasons for voting against something, am I criticizing council's decision at that point? It can be interpreted a few different ways, and I do agree. Like I do agree. I think the essence is that you're supposed to be respectful of council's decisions and respect the democracy of the decision that is made by council. You can what you stated in that council meeting is captured. So to restate what you stated in the meeting, I don't think is actually criticism of the decision, but it's your viewpoint, and you emphasize that at the meeting. And I don't think restating that could be construed as criticism. I don't know, but I think maybe a different wording could better suit this one as well.
Any Councillor Bath or Famlin, any comments?
Yeah, just I think if we take the negative tone out of that comment, it will probably sort of that. I think Councillor Cassidy hit it right on the nose with something he said, and I can't, it was 2 seconds ago if I've forgotten already. But I think if we take the negative side out of that, we can make it work quite well, because I agree that it's a council decision, and as councillors, we're all part of it. But personally, I may not have agreed with it in the council meeting. I may not have called for a recorded vote. In fact, I would never recall for a recorded vote. But that doesn't mean I would agree with it. So I think if we could just change that to a sort of I don't think we can make it positive. I suppose we can make it a positive comment.
Councillor Famlin.
No, I'm good. I'm just listening.
So I think Clerk, and I'm wondering, you know, I've been in the position. So what was council thinking when you made that decision? And being asked that question, and the response usually I try to frame it around, well, the discussion at the council table was this, and some people gave this view and some people gave that view. Personally, I was on the dissenting side, but council's decided, and that's where we're going. I think it's a matter of framing your response in a respectful manner to council's decision, but stating what your view was on the matter. I think we need that freedom, and I don't think that you really intended to take that away, Clerk, go ahead with I think you've probably already got a solution to revise this.
Through Mayor Lawrence, thanks. Yes, no, certainly it wasn't my decision to infringe upon members' rights in any way, shape, or form. Again, this is fairly common language. It talks about how council makes decisions, and that's really the root of it. However, alternative wording, since that seems to be requested, how about all members of council shall uphold the decisions of council?
Uphold or respect to the decisions of council? Is that fair enough?
Respect could work, yep.
Uphold sort of sounds like we're the ones out there enforcing or doing whatever. Just shall respect council's decision, even though they might be in the dissenting view or whatever.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there. So is that fair enough, council? Yep.
Yeah.
What does uphold mean? I don't have my dictionary.
Yeah, I will, yeah. I have a little bit of trouble with that word.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Timpson. The mayor suggested we change uphold to respect. Respect the decision of council.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just thinking, what does uphold mean? And it's quite possible you don't respect the decision, but you agree to abide by it or uphold. That's why I'm just asking, what does uphold mean? I don't have my dictionary handy.
According to confirm or support something which has been questioned is the definition of uphold.
You support it, so uphold would more imply support, whereas respect means, look, I don't agree with it, but I respect the fact that council's made the democratic decision and we're moving on. So we're moving on. Thank you, clerk.
Okay, 7.7, I believe is where we are. Don't think I skipped over anything to go. Okay. 7.7, all members of council shall wear proper business attire. Tie is optional during regularly scheduled, special, and in-camera meetings. So 2 comments on this. Both relate to the fact that both are opposed to the business attire, essentially saying that people work in different jobs. Some of them come to work right after working. They can be nurses, paramedics, fuelers, so on and so forth. So, and also comments relating to freedom of expression and the fact that people should be able to wear whatever they want. Some disagreement with this suggested requirement. Staff's comments, the intent again was simply to promote a certain level of decorum around the table, to demonstrate to those observing that council meetings are taken seriously by those who are elected to represent the community. Again, however, this is not the right version of this, so let me take this out. My apologies. So essentially, staff is just looking for council's direction. It can stay in, it can come out, whatever. It has not been in our bylaws in the past. If council wishes it to remain out, that's fine as well.
So I'm going to try and dispense with this, or does council, if you're in favor of having no dress code, raise your hand. No dress code whatsoever, that this section be removed. No dress code whatsoever, so I just see 2 in favor, so okay, it looks like we have a majority who would like a dress code. Perhaps I would ask the members, one of the members who would like a dress code, to say how they see it working. Councillor Cassidy. You were swatting a fly, I think, but.
Well, I was gonna just raise my hand on something else, and then you posed the question as I was in the process of raising it. But anyway, I think just something outline it. Our staff have a dress code now. I think it's only fair that we gave a dress code, that we should follow one. As speaking to what we want to wear as free people, if you want to wear traditional clothing or something like that, I think that kind of comes down to a bit of common sense. Wear what you think's respectable for the position that you're in, and go from there. Like, I'm not gonna show up to a council meeting in a muscle shirt and shorts. Like, it shows respect to the position. So I don't think there's an issue with it. If there is an issue and it is something, then you're infringing on a human rights issue, and that's a whole other ballgame that can get dealt with if it needs to. But I don't think anyone will have any issues with something like that. So I don't see an issue with it.
Council, any other comments? Tough one. Councillor Timpson, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, Councillor Cassidy makes the point that there's a dress code for staff. Why could our dress code not just simply be, parallel to that, which is basically basic, decent attire, really? It doesn't prescribe anything. It just, asks you to be decent. And I think that's all we need is basically basic decency and common sense.
Would the The staff dress code, could we apply that to council? Would it, with some tweaking, would it work, clerk, CAO?
So would,
I'll defer to the CAO.
Okay, CAO, yep.
yes, we can, through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, we can take a look at the policy and bring it to council and see if they're okay with it, and then just incorporate it into the into a policy for council with reference to dress code. Maybe make reference to it in the procedure bylaw.
That seems to make sense to me, that you, if we're asking staff to do, that we do likewise, although there'll be some things, whether it be regarding safety gear or whatever, that may be not appropriate, but so staff will tweak, take the municipal employee dress code as the basis to form one for council to put in policy and procedure. Fair enough. Good suggestion, Councillor Timpson. Let's move on.
Great. So what we'll do is we'll take dress code out of the procedure bylaw, and it'll be dealt with as a separate council policy. That'll be based on the staff policy. That's what I heard. Okay.
Yep. Good.
Okay. 7.8. Again, this has to deal with dress. So again, I'm just going to say C 7.7.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, 7.10.2 reads the response to council members to inquiry, that should be the response by or from council members to inquiries about matters dealt with during an in-camera or closed meeting prior to it being reported publicly shall be, this matter is still under advisement, or no comment, or words to that effect. One of the comments we received was that we were advised in media training not to say no comment, as it gives an impression of non-transparency. Staff's comments, in this instance, non-transparency is appropriate because it involves closed session deliberations. And again, it does leave it up to the member's discretion. So if you don't want to say no comment, then you can always say this matter is still under advisement, or this is a matter that council is dealing with in closed session. I'm not at liberty to discuss it at this time, or something to that effect. So there's a fair bit of flexibility there. Therefore, staff recommends no changes to that section.
So council, there's no revisions recommended by staff. I have no comment. Does any councillor have a comment? No comments.
Yeah.
Oh, there is a comment. Sorry, Councillor Timpson, can you rotate your camera, because sometimes your hand is below there. Thank you. Your hand is below the camera. Thanks.
Yeah, I just think the term "no comment" is very abrupt. If people want to say it, that's up to them. But to have that in the bylaw as something they should say, I think that the no comment thing should be removed, and the alternatives. Stressing the alternative responses, because no comment is really abrupt and off-putting. So my comment, no comment.
Could you come up with a minor revision that took no comment out and added another alternative that was not abrupt?
Through me, Lawrence, I think we could just take no comment out and just leave this matter is under advisement, or words to that effect.
Good.
I don't think we need to add.
Council would be all right with that? Yep.
Yeah,
Councillor Timpson's good with that, and so is council.
Yep.
Next item.
Oops. Okay, 8.2. Any member previous to speaking to on any motion shall indicate their desire to speak by a raised hand and shall not raise to speak until recognized by the chair. The comment we received was speaking through the chair is practiced by other councils, but it seems pretentious in a small rural town. The substance of the discussion, not the salutation, is important. Staff's response, the section is intended to provide order and decorum at the meetings and avoid situations where members are speaking over each other. One must keep in mind that municipalities are creatures of the province and as such are expected to follow the same parliamentary style of procedures during council meetings. And I really can't stress that enough. It seems to be something that sometimes is escaped from our forefront. So I wanted to underscore that. And this is currently how we conduct our in-person meetings.
Council comments?
What's this about? Yeah, what's this? What's this about? Shall not rise to speak. I've never risen to speak.
It's common language, Councillor Timpson. It means in many places people do rise to speak. If you would like me to just shall not speak, if you'd like rise to removed from the clause, I don't object to that.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate to remove rise. Yeah.
Any further comments? Right now, no revisions other than that to this section. I see none. So with that comment, clerk, deleting shall not rise. So it'd be.
So it'll just be the words
Shall.
not rise will be removed.
Yep, and raised hand. You'll
I have
figure it out.
one question.
Where am I looking? Councillor Howie, yeah.
Just to clarify this, so when speaking on a motion as a counselor to speak through the chair, this doesn't provide that we speak through the chair, correct?
Through you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor Lawrence. Yes. So typically, when council is providing their comments, normally it's just a matter of raising your hand. You're recognized by the chair, then you speak. Members of council don't always address their comments through the chair. Procedurally, that would be the correct thing to do, but it's not a common practice in our municipality. Staff do pretty much every time. Again, it's just a matter of respect and courtesy. So essentially what we're getting at here, raise your hand to speak and don't speak until the chair says, okay, it's your turn. That's essentially what that clause says.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Council? Councillor Timpson.
Are we on 8.3 or 8.2 now? We're on 8.3.
8.2. We're just about to leave 8.2. As you're already on 8.3, then we're going to 8.2. I mean, sorry, yeah, we're going there too. We're joining you.
Okay. So then section 8.3, again, chair shall recognize members in the order they indicate their desire to speak, be acknowledged by the chair, and then address their questions through the chair, through you, Mayor Lawrence, again, or Mayor, whoever. Again, the part about members addressing through the chair or through you, that's, again, perhaps that isn't necessary. It's not the common practice here. But again, if you want to remove that requirement, staff, of course, will still use that. The comments specifically are there. It has a colonial ring to it. Speaking according to order to hand raising makes for disjointed, competitive discussion. One might want to pursue one's comment or question with a follow-up question or comment while the next member is selected to speak. With the circular manner of our virtual meetings, knowing when one's next turn is helpful. Members can consider points made by all others, and when their turn comes around again, they can speak substantively and reach consensus. First Nations and many women's groups use circle talks. Young people could be hindered by this approach. A statement, the chair will employ rules of debate at their discretion. Staff's comments. Maintaining a speakers list is a key feature of most meetings. It ensures that those who wish to speak are given the opportunity in a controlled, predictable fashion. Just providing opportunities for each member to speak adds unnecessary time to the meeting, as sometimes members may feel they need to say something just because it's their turn to speak. And giving such wide discretion to the chair could result in the misuse of that power. So if we just say, okay, debate shall be at the chair's discretion, that could really curtail debate if, for example, there was a chair who was not interested in hearing from members at all. I think it's really important to maintain a speakers list. It ensures fairness, and it ensures that members are given, it's equitable. And again, it's a very, very common practice.
Councillor Timpson, then Councillor Lego.
I was the one that I have found.
So you're on mute, Councillor Timpson. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was the one that wrote that because I have really found such a difference in the way we were doing things virtually. Sometimes it does take longer, but I feel that the issues are the issues that each individual councillor has does get on the floor in a less competitive way. I often feel in council meetings that we're competing to get your hand up or to get your point in, and you say it tends to get all disjointed from my perspective. So I like the virtual circular way of doing it. I'd love to see that instituted.
Councillor Lego.
I thought that's kind of what we've been doing. Even in-person meetings, whoever lifts the item usually gets to speak first. And then the chair goes to the next person and goes in a circular motion until everyone's spoken. And if there's more that needs to be discussed, we start again at the person that lifted it and we make the circular motion around the table and everyone has a chance to put their input in. So that's how I've seen things be done over the last 2 years. So I like the way that's done. Everyone gets a chance to express or not express. If they don't have an opinion on a certain motion, then they usually say, no, I don't have anything. And the chair moves on to the next person in line to speak. So.
Councillor Howie.
No, I absolutely like the circle style discussions that we've been having going in an order. I do agree that this, putting the hand up may create some kind of competitive nature. I think addressing a cultural component there is absolutely of the utmost importance. Acknowledging that, council members may be from all walks of life and given our region and who we hope to see at the council table, I think that's absolutely important. So I do really like the way we've been running things electronically, and since I've joined council in a circle type fashion, keeping that kind of that speaker's order, I think is perfect.
Mr. Clerk, is there? I'm not sure what changes other than through the chair or through you, Mayor, is discretionary, and we don't really enforce that or require that. It's the fact that you speak when the chair recognizes you, I think, is to me essential, and that's for good order and also for democracy, because it allows, what you try to do is allow the smallest voice to be as equal as the biggest voice, and you don't want one voice dominating. So I'll keep quiet now. I'm not sure what changes we need to look at here. Clerk, have you?
Mayor Lawrence, what I'm hearing from this is that council wishes to depart from the parliamentary style of question and answers and participation, and adopt a new format where every member gets equal airing and every member gets an opportunity to speak twice, is what I'm hearing. So I'll change the wording to reflect that.
I thought that was already in the procedural bylaw. I'm not sure that I wasn't sure that that's what council was asking for here. I'm not. Maybe I misheard.
Sorry, what I've heard from the discussion is that council, or the members that spoke anyway, would prefer that the chair go to every member of council on every item that's lifted twice and let them have their say. That's what I'm hearing members want, instead of raising their hand to speak to an item.
I would just, okay, I'm going to respectfully suggest, I'm not sure that I heard that from council, but I think that the chair, it would be better to leave the chair with some discretion, and because sometimes it's quite clear on a lifted item that only one councillor wants to speak, and does anybody else wish to? I don't see any point in going around the table 2 times to get negative nods. If the chair reads the room and somebody raises their hand, and there seems to be enough interest. I'm not sure. I thought that I heard that it was working reasonably well the way it was going. There is some discretion, but go around the table in that format as required. Maybe it needs to be more formal. I'll go to Councillor Lego and then Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I was the one that brought up the second round. That was at the discretion of the chair. The chair always feels out the room, and sometimes, and not all the time, feels that there needs to be more discussion on a topic. But that doesn't happen in the majority of the times. It's a minority of the times that we do a second round of discussion. So,
And before
sorry for the
Councillor
confusion.
Cassidy, occasionally we go to a third round of something, which is probably against the procedural bylaw, which is everybody gets to speak twice to the issue. Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I think we have two different scenarios here. We have in person and we have electronic. Electronic, the round table twice, I think works very well. It gives everyone to say their piece. In person, I think if you lift an item or you raise your hand to lift something, you get to speak to it. And then it kind of turns into discussion. And I think the chair handles it because everyone's more visible in person than on here in some circumstances, and trying to get the attention or be seen as well. I would say the twice around for electronic meetings, and I would say the in-person stuff is more of how we've just kind of always done it, where it's you raise your hand, you lift an item, you speak to it, and then if there's follow-up, maybe we just go around the table once. I do agree that I don't think there's a lot of value if you don't want to speak to something, the chair acknowledging you shaking your head no, and then going on and doing that for every item that's lifted. I don't. In person, you're there, you can put your hand up and go from there. So I think we need to maybe separate the two with how we conduct ourselves, but that's just my.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Clerk, what changes are, and council can shoot me down, if it's been working well, and presumably we are working within the procedural bylaw, otherwise you would have shot us down. Why do we need to change this particular section?
Through Mayor Lawrence, what I was attempting to do here was to have the meetings more closely resemble the parliamentary style of decision making. Clearly, what I'm hearing is council does not want to replicate that. So what I've taken from this discussion is that what I will remove from section 8.3 is that members do not have to raise their hands. They do not have to address questions through the chair. And I'll just leave in the fact that they can only speak when recognized by the chair. That's essentially what that section will read. Members shall only speak when recognized by the chair, period.
Yeah.
Does that I'm sorry, does that take us back to the same place? Which, you know, I think you should leave the part in about the parliamentary part, but leave the flexibility to run the meetings the way we've been doing it. Councillor Howley.
Yeah, so I do like what the clerk was saying, to keep the structure of the chair recognizing the individual council members that wish to speak, and to keep that sense of order. If it is in the manner of going around the council table or in council chambers or along however you view the screens of the different council members on your computer, to that respect in that order. So not speaking out of turn or to be speaking over anyone when they're speaking. And as the clerk also mentioned, with that removal of the through the chair or through you, Mayor Lawrence. Yeah, so I think there's still the order and the structure to it. There's just I think the title of parliamentary style, that can be, removing that can just kind of make people think there's going to be no order, but there is still some structure and order to what's going to be hopefully conducted.
I will trust you, clerk, in your interpretation of what council has said here, and I hope the council does too, that we're not trying to take order out of the meetings, and I don't want to bequeath to the next mayor or chair a meeting without any order or the ability to have any control. So have you read the room here?
I believe so. So essentially, I think what we'll do for this section is, again, remove some of those sticky points that can slow down the discussion, and essentially just say, you know, members shall speak when recognized by the chair to do so. and that the chair will exercise discretion in allowing and debate. Something to that effect.
Fair enough. Council? Councillor Timpson?
Yeah, that sounds fair enough. So basically, if we want to do the circular talk in person, we can, but we're not limited to the, you know, the competitive way of having to get your hand up and be seen and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, this will put more responsibility on the chair, just to make sure that every member who wants to speak has the opportunity to speak, and it'll also be up to the chair to make sure that, you know, that speaking, well, that's actually addressed a little bit more in the next section, so I'll just stop there for now.
All right. I think we're good to go to the next section.
All right. So 8.7, no member shall speak on any subject matter other than the subject matter that is currently being discussed. Yeah.
8.9, I think.
Oops. Did I?
That's 8.7.
It says 8.9 on my page.
It's 8.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, I turned a page.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
so no member shall speak on any subject other than the subject that is currently being debated. The comment we received was that for thoughtful discussion, introducing context may be important, but may be perceived as unrelated. This section could be used to silence members with dissenting positions. A clause requiring an explanation of the relevance of the issue, if questioned, might suffice. Staff's comments, the intent of the section is to ensure deliberations remain on topic. Should a member feel that he or she is being unduly silenced, then he or she can call a motion to appeal the decision of the chair, which would then be voted on by council. And so then it would be a decision of council as opposed to a decision of the chair as to whether or not that member is allowed to continue on their line of a discussion.
Council. Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I think there that, you know, a person could be squelched without having the opportunity to explain, because then you have to have the vote of council to allow you to explain. So that's where I put that in there. I don't know that it's ever happened, but just the way it could happen that somebody is silenced because they don't see the relevance of another issue to this issue. So.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. Yes, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Timpson. And I guess what I was trying to say is that the remedy to that is that it's not just up to the chair. If the chair says, you know, for example, the chair says, okay, Councillor Timpson, what you're saying is not related to the conversation at hand, you need to stop. And you don't agree with that because you're trying to provide context to the situation, then you would appeal the chair's decision to the rest of council. So then you have 5 other members who then decide whether or not they want to hear the context or the background that you would like to offer. So then it's a decision of council as opposed to a decision of the chair.
Well, yeah, you're silenced. You could be silenced by the rest of council. The rest of council doesn't want to hear.
That's correct, and that's council's right. Because again, that council makes those decisions as a body. If council as a body decides they don't want to hear anymore, then that's council's decision.
Well, yeah, that's what I don't like. You know.
But that's how decisions are made. That's how the process works.
Well, maybe that we have to look at that process as some changes. I suggested just a clause that requires you to explain the relevance of an issue that may appear to be out of not related. So, anyway, no, I don't agree with that. Having to get council to agree whether or not you can speak. Basically, that's what it is, and it's very cumbersome too.
I guess sitting as chair, it can be cumbersome and awkward as well as when a member who may have a dissenting view wishes to continue speaking and continue speaking and continue speaking. And at some point, the chair needs, I think, the discretion to say, I think that this is no longer relevant, it's not relevant. And the chair puts him or herself out there too to stop that discussion and might be overturned by by 5 members of council if the member appeals. And I think it's rare that a chair cuts a member off or says it's time to stop. It's not relevant. And if you remove that ability, then you're chipping away at having orderly meetings, I think.
Well, I don't think you'd have to remove the ability to do it. You just have to put the onus back on the member to explain the relevance of what they're saying. You know, we're talking about context, not necessarily repeating the same point over and over again. It's more, what is the context? What is the background? How does it relate to maybe a previous policy that was made, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and put the relevance onto put the onus back onto the council member to explain themselves as to why they need to bring this up. That's all.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I think that's what's coming across here, Councillor Timpson, is I think that they are trying to say, like, if you are explaining and it's not coming across as relevant, I think in most situations when people are making a point, there's ample time to make your point and determine the relevance. And if it's not relevant and the chair determines that no, this isn't relevant there, and then you have your chance to say, and then the rest of council has heard your arguments as to why it's relevant, and then it's up to council to decide. I think that is in there. It's just the way you get to it or whatnot, but I think it is there.
Council okay with the staff recommendation and no revision to section 8.7? Is that an okay? I know Councillor Dissension is dissenting. I think Councillor Timpson is dissenting, but I think we're moving on. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Okay, section 8.9. So again, no member of council shall speak more than twice to the main questions and no longer than 5 minutes on any questions except an explanation of a material part of his or her debate, which may have been misunderstood, but they may not introduce new matter. A right of reply may be allowed to a member who has made a substantive motion to council, and no member shall speak to the same question or in reply without permission of council. So the comment we received, I feel we've breached this rule before given some of the lengthy discussion. Is it necessary? Or is this just for until the chair feels focus has been lost on the topic? So yeah, absolutely, this is a new provision. It hasn't been used previously. Again, its intent is to ensure the timely disposition of items on the agenda. If council prefers not to have limits on speaking times, we can certainly remove this section.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I don't, I just, like, who's setting the timer on these? And like, we're putting a time limit. I think the chair has the ability, and along with the rest of council, if someone feels they are unduly squashed, as we discussed in the last one, that this is up to determining the relevance of the discussion at the council table. I don't see a reason for a stopwatch to come out on this. So.
Council, I see a head nod there. Councillor Timpson.
I don't see any reason to put a time limit on it. It's rarely been a problem, and I don't know that we need to have a policy for something that's really never been a problem. That's my view.
Any other council comments? Councillor Howie and Councillor Lego.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a problem. Yes, there is a potential in the future for it to become an issue, but I feel that members, if there is a discussion, then they should be able to, adequately get that point across. Thank you.
Councillor Lego.
Yeah, I'm okay with getting rid of the time limits out of there.
Looks, and I'm okay with it. I think the time has rarely been an issue, the 5 minutes. Sometimes there's repetition. It really goes back to the previous item more than this item. I think council is saying take this out?
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, clerk. Moving on, 9.1.
Okay, 9.1, agenda order of business, essentially is what 9.1 is. So the comments I received, press questions is missing. It should be placed before the in-camera session. And also members of council reports. Council should discuss how this practice could add more value than at present. So staff's comments, the elimination of press question period or media question period was intentional. Media has never taken advantage of that opportunity. And in the same way that the public shouldn't speak at meetings, or it's not recommended the public speak at meetings, neither necessarily should the media in this respect. The recommendation to put questions from the press before going into closed session, I think could very much extend the length of meetings. So I would not recommend that. And it's been the practice that the media sends their questions the following day to the mayor and the clerk and or the CAO to get their questions answered. That's been the typical process that has been followed, and it seems to work quite well. With respect to the comment on member of council's reports, staff agrees. I think that it can be removed from the council agenda. Members could use other channels to advise their constituents of their activities. That's just one perspective.
Council. It's, the media questions, I'll just start to discuss the media. I've never been asked by media at a council meeting any questions. It's always our local media the day after, and regional media, whether it's Thunder Bay or Dryden or wherever, they get the results of the meeting and follow up after. So to me, removing the media questions from the agenda just makes sense. Council, any dissenting views there? Councillor Timpson?
Not dissenting so much as, but the fact that it was always after the in-camera meeting could mean that they just went home and weren't willing to wait till after the in-camera was over.
But we don't always have in-camera sessions. I don't know, is it every second one we have closed sessions? So when we don't have in-camera or closed sessions, they've never asked me a question. Even when, you know, on the night of the meeting, I never get asked media questions. And I'm assuming that council has, there's no press waiting outside the front door for us when we leave the building. It seems like it's just it's an item on the agenda that doesn't need to be there. Agreed, council? Is that okay? Removed. Okay, on that one, Brian. Clerk, sorry. So then we go to the council reports, members of council report. Council, feelings, discussion? Councillor Lego.
Yeah, I don't see this as an issue. It's a whole 10 minutes of our time, and we go around the table and we discuss what we're doing in committees, and I actually like to hear it, so I'd like to keep it.
Further comments, council? Councillor Cassidy, then Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, personally, I could go either way on this. It's at the end of the meeting, so how many people are actually watching? I know it's our discussion too, and I get that. It's kind of a toss-up for me on this one. Is what's our value? If our value is to just have some good discussion about stuff at the council table, that's fine. If it's to advise the public about what we're doing, I don't think having that discussion at 10 o'clock at night or whenever we do have it, get to it at the end of the meeting is appropriate. Yeah, so I could go either way. I do kind of see Councillor Lego's point about having some discussion and dialogue about certain things and activities going on. It's kind of good to hear what everyone's doing. So yeah, I'm fine with keeping it as well.
Councillor Timpson, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I could go either way either, but I guess if we decide to keep it, I'd like to see it actually be a little bit more useful, rather than just reporting that went to this meeting, went to that meeting. I thought maybe there could be some discussion as to how do we make it more a richer exchange.
So I'll go, Councillor Bath first. Yeah.
Yeah, just to comment, I'm kind of, so I might have even been the one who put this in on the agenda in the last procedural bylaw, if I recall. But I don't think there's any need for it. You know, all we really need to do to move this ahead is come to the meeting 10 minutes early, and we can talk about the same things ahead of the meeting, because it really isn't part of the council discussion.
So just before you had to comment, Clerk, I just say I could go either way on this as well. But I think council meetings are more than just for the public. Council meetings are for council to meet together. And the opportunity this is a brief opportunity to update each other on what we've been doing as members of council. And it's not necessarily for the public, it's for each other. This is a council meeting. It's a meeting of the council. So we don't get together. We're not allowed to get together very often. So that's the value I see in it. This isn't for the public. This is for you. I mean, the public can certainly watch this if they choose to, but it's for you, for us to update each other. The slippery slope is, and if you get into a discussion, then and that's why I like it just to be a report, one by one report, and you know, a very mild question about something you might question, but the slippery slope is you'll be discussing something that's not on the agenda, and then the public darn well better know that you're having discussions about items that aren't on the agenda. So it needs to be carefully, if not managed, approached. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. So hearing the discussion, you know, and having spoken with the CAO in advance of this meeting, another suggestion that could add considerable value would be instead of going around the table and doing verbal reports, that there would be a monthly report, you know, that potentially could be, members could send their information to the executive assistant. The executive assistant will compile that into a report to council, and then it would be a report on the agenda that could be lifted and discussed and questions asked and so on. So that would be another option.
Council? For ease of moving forward, can we just keep it as it is for now?
Sure.
And then look at options for, with respect to members could use other channels to advise our constituents and each other of their activities.
Perfect.
If that's all right, Council? Good. Thank you.
Okay. So 10.3.
Before we move on, we're now at 4:20. Just looking at how much time it's taken us to get to this point and what's left, it looks like a 6 o'clock finish here.
Yeah.
Whether you're all right with it or not, are you all right with that, Council? Are we going to lose members, or are we okay to go to 6? We're okay. At some point we'll call, why don't we do 10.3 and then take a 5-minute break, if that's acceptable. Thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. So this section has to do with quorum, not present and time limit. The comments would be useful to clarify that this applies even when there is a vacancy on council. The staff comments, quorum is determined by the number of members of council and the number of members of council present at any given meeting. So quorum is normally 4 with a council of 7, then quorum would still be 4 if 6 members were in attendance. If it would be 3, there would be 5 members in attendance, etc. So I don't believe any revisions are required. Quorum is based on those in attendance.
All right, Council. Good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, Councillor Timpson.
If you're, so if we had 2 vacancies, quorum would be 3?
Yes.
2 vacancies, quorum would be 3. Okay.
All right. I had said a break, but boy, I feel like we better move on before we break. Or is the next one a long one? Might be. Let's take a 5-minute break. I can notify my dog that I won't be home when I told him I would be. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Paul, maybe lots of good stuff. Oh, I don't know your stuff up there. I don't know if it's rainwater.
I don't know, but it looks like you need stuff out of here now.
It's you.
Wrapped around so badly.
Really?
Yeah. So it's so tied to the line and you can't pull it, that's sugar rips. Okay.
Raining though.
Again? Good. Rain on the way home too.
Yeah, it's all through the mail. Probably on it in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
What was that?
Yeah. 11:30.
Really?
Yeah.
How come? Wait for it.
Well, going back and forth home, I didn't have any teeth to get in the mill. And then we get the quality, and finally, it's good real on it, that's coming up now.
What did they do if they didn't have you? You're gonna slack. You're gonna be a while yet?
Wow.
I can start listening to this sort of going forward. What's outside? Do you want anything?
You were over my phone out there?
No, I moved it, but I should have put it in the garage. I didn't think it was gonna rain again.
I didn't think I was gonna be this long.
It was dry, though.
No, I know it was wet, but it wasn't.
I'm sure it was.
Just put all those blankets underneath
The dry fish. The dogs are not gonna move. This ride was nasty this morning, let me tell you. Well, people don't trust the bus, they don't want the kids on the bus. It's part of it, so there's more people dropping the kids off the road, and they can't drop them off at the top of the hill, so. But all those extra people. I have to scoop the line up to get into the parking lot. And my vest on those, so I think they're probably pretty much all realized who it is by now.
Okay.
And then, we went, I was there, I had a couple of minutes to spare. So then I went, out where I'm supposed to be. And Kirsty was there and it looked pretty good, and she commented on Kiss and Ride, and that cars were lined up past the school trying to drop kids off. So we went out to Kiss and Ride, and we weren't there very, very long, a couple of vehicles, and then McDowell went.
Yeah.
And Cynthia O'Donovan was there, and I said, you have to go, you've got a class. So I told her, I said, Kirsty and I will stay. So Kirsty and I stayed, and I ended up, like, there was 2 other people that showed up. So I just kept getting the cars to go right up to the corner, don't stop at the Kiss and Ride thing, go up to the corner, 4 kids out as fast as we can. And it was like almost 9 o'clock by the time we were done. It was crazy. But none of us were where we were supposed to be. That's the point.
Councillor Fenlon's not on mute.
Oh, it's Councillor Fenlon, thanks.
Well,
Heard it all, Counselor.
Here we go. Okay. Sorry, I thought I was listening to the CAO's letting across to say, put on mute. And she said, I am on mute. Well, I can hear you. All right. Are we all back? Councillor Howie, Councillor Cassidy, you there yet?
Yeah. I just mentioned something interesting, I think. With respect to our electronic meetings and our whatever, decorum, there's been 2 really interesting podcasts put out by Municipal World that comes through. I don't know if anyone else has heard them, but there's been 2 of them. They're about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's just about, how to make these meetings, like just little things like lighting. And they said don't mix indoor, or rather natural and artificial lighting. So that's why I moved into the living room here. And little things like don't do this. If you do this, it scares people, little things like that. It was a really interesting podcast. So I'd recommend people listening to them if they can. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Timpson. Sorry, the room I'm in the municipal office, which is impossible to move my computer. I have an 8x4 window on one side, which brings in natural light, even if I turn the blinds down. And I have light coming in. I can't do much about the lighting. If the heat was on at the beginning of the meeting, and that's why I chose not to put on my tie and jacket. Now, all of a sudden, the air conditioning is on high force, and my back is freezing to my chair.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are. We're back. Sorry. Let's get at her. We're on. Clerk, you'll have to help me. 10.3? No. 12.1. 12.1.
So 12.1 and 12.4 together deal with people who wish to be delegations. 12.1 deals with the time frame for submitting their delegations, which is 2 weeks before the meeting. And 12.4 talks to how they speak to council during a delegation. And that they only have 10 minutes to present to council. So the comments from council, delegations are important for engagement. A deadline of 3 weeks before a council meeting could restrict this. Could be a due date can be waived at the discretion of blank, pending the length of the agenda, etc. Or the deadline be a week before council, as for other municipalities. And then on 12.4, the comment was this is restrictive, as there are usually questions from council. Staff's feedback on that. The timeline outlined in the bylaw is required to meet agenda preparation process. And again, just to clarify, it's 2 weeks, not 3. If it was 1 week before council, the agenda is pretty much finalized. By then, it would create a lot of additional work on our end. And with respect to 12.4, speaking times is not inclusive of questions by member of council. That's covered in section 12.3.3. So no the recommendation that no revisions be made to this section.
Council. With those explanations, Councillor Lego.
Yeah, it's not. Oh yeah, it's not really a point. Just in regards to, there might be a typo, and I don't know if the typo is just in this section or in both sections. But it says delegations having submitted their require It should be requested.
Yes, that's a mistake in me typing this in too quickly. My apologies. Thank
Okay.
you for catching that.
No, I was just wondering if it was just in this one and if it
Yeah.
was, or if it was in both of them. So,
Any further comments, council? Councillor Timpson.
Most of our delegations do go over 10 minutes. Are these for members of the public, or are these for members like delegation from, the auditor or that sort of thing? Should we have a section in there for the different types of delegations we have?
CAO.
Typically, when we request a presentation be done, we allow them more time because the municipality is requiring the presentation. For statutory things like our financial statements, it's understandable that it has to go over the allotted time limit. It's mostly for delegation purposes to ensure that they're kept to a minimum and not, excessive, because some meetings we do have more than one delegation. We want to make sure that they're all heard and that we get through the agenda. So it depends on the type of presentation or delegation, and usually it's at the discretion of the clerk and or the CAO as to the time limit that we give them for the presentation.
So this, if council or the municipality is requesting somebody come and make a delegation, a presentation, then we set the time 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is appropriately for our needs. If somebody's saying to us, we want to come in and sell you a product, or we want to come in and state our case, that's where the 10 minutes comes in.
Correct.
Seems reasonable to me, council. We're okay with this? I'm seeing okay to move on, no revisions.
Okay, section 12.3.3b, council members shall be permitted a question period for each presentation and or delegation of a maximum of 5 minutes. The question doesn't need to be limited. Are we going to cut good dialogue off because we've hit the 5-minute mark? I suggest we leave it open or increase it if we need to include a maximum. So again, the staff's comments, the purpose is to ensure timely progression of items on the agenda. Remember, council isn't intended to dialogue with the presenter, just to hear the questions and ask questions, or pardon me, hear the presentation and ask questions. Normally, no decisions are made by council immediately following the delegation. Suggest leaving it at 5 minutes, and then council can always pass a motion if it wishes to continue questioning the delegate for longer than 5 minutes.
Council? Councilor Nagle. Excuse me. Nope. Yep. Nope. Not you. Councilor Cassidy.
Yeah. I understand the bringing people in and the time limits on that with the presentation and stuff like that. But I think when I say dialogue, I'm thinking of questions, answers, like a back and forth is a dialogue. A question answer is a dialogue in my mind. I don't see the need for the stopwatch. I think the questions will come as long as they're good and productive, and it's council asking the questions. So we're determining how long it goes by the questions we ask. Again, I don't see the need for a timer out and then having to pass a resolution to ask more questions. Leave it, let council ask the questions, and if you want a time limit, then just maybe make it a little more, so I don't know, it's not as cumbersome. So
Council? Clerk?
Certainly, through Mayor, perhaps it can be reworded to a time frame to be determined by the chair, as opposed to a maximum of 5 minutes.
How about 5 minutes or a time frame to be determined by the chair?
Okay.
Set sort of like a benchmark, and there is flexibility. Chair or council, I guess. Good with that, clerk? You can make that happen? Yep. 12.7.
Okay, 12.7. So this one talks about when it's deemed inappropriate that a delegation address council, the clerk shall notify the delegation and council with supporting explanation. Such written explanation shall be delivered with the agenda, and the council, if it so wishes to hear the delegation, shall, by a 2/3 vote of the council members present and voting, introduce a motion to that should be suspend the rules to allow the delegation to be heard at the next regular council meeting or at a special council meeting. The question is, where does the 2/3 come from, and why not just a simple majority? So essentially, anytime council decides to defer from its established processes or policies or procedures, a 2/3 vote is required, or a supermajority, as it's sometimes called, to illustrate that it is a major departure from council's procedures, and the vast majority of council does agree with the decision to do so. So it's essentially, we're saying this is an exception to the rule, and 75% of us want to make sure that we want to accept the rule in this case.
Council? The member who asked the question, okay? Not sure who did, but I see everybody seems to be okay. So good. Explained, no revisions required. Next item.
Oops, keep doing that. Okay, item 13.3. Every bylaw caption shall be read prior to it being passed and endorsed by council. Members' comments was that this is cumbersome at the end of the night. Is it necessary? Staff's comments, yeah, it's necessary. Council is required to give 3 readings and then pass its bylaws. Please note that it's the bylaw caption, so essentially the title of the bylaw, not the entire bylaw gets read. Staff's recommendation is to leave this as is.
Well, I didn't make this comment, but boy, I understand why it's there. But I think the explanation is it's necessary, and we carry on.
Okay. 13.5, a bylaw, with the exception of confirming bylaw, may be debated or amended before final adoption by council. The comment from member was, I find this is one thing that is not really clear in our meetings when we are lifting items for discussion. Is it possible to lift a bylaw and add it for discussion as a new item? Staff's comments. So until very recently, all items on the agenda required a staff report, and this would include every bylaw on the agenda. Therefore, members would have the opportunity to discuss the bylaw as part of the staff report section. There have been a few examples in recent months when administrative bylaws were introduced at one meeting via a staff report, but then not passed until the next meeting. In this instance, there would not be a staff report at the subsequent meeting, just the bylaw listed under the bylaw section. If a member wanted to lift one of these bylaws for discussion, it would likely have to be done as an item of reconsideration, as council had previously determined how they would deal with the matter. If council wishes to lift bylaws that are on the agenda without a staff report, then the mayor would need to go through the bylaw section when determining items requiring separate discussion. And
so,
the recommendation is that there be no revisions to this section.
So if I may start with a question, if you want to do, why wouldn't you do then a request for reconsideration, or because it hasn't been voted on through as a bylaw yet, or? Yeah,
so staff's recommendation is that if there's a bylaw on an agenda without a report because it had been on a prior agenda with a report, then my recommendation would be that in that case, it would need to be dealt with as reconsideration, because council did pass a resolution authorizing the passing of that bylaw at the previous meeting through the staff report. So my recommendation would be that that is how it should be dealt with. However, if there was an instance where there was a bylaw on the agenda that had never had a staff report, then in that case, it would be in order for a member to be able to lift that if that's council's desire. The only example I can think of in recent months would be the appointment of the deputy treasurer. That was on the agenda in April as a bylaw with no staff report, either preceding it or at that meeting. So I guess if there had been a desire to discuss the appointment of the deputy treasurer, there wouldn't have been an opportunity to lift that at that meeting. So that would be, I guess the easiest way of dealing with this is to just require that there always be a staff report accompanying everything that's on the agenda at some point in time. So even if it is a bylaw to appoint an officer, that be accompanied by a staff report. That way it can be lifted if there's such a need.
And it would appear in the items for separate discussion?
Correct.
So that seems to be a much easier way than going through the bylaw sections. To me, that I support that, Council. I see no raised hands, so I think, well, Councillor Timpson, yeah.
Just run that by us again. What would be the easiest?
So the easiest thing for us to do would just be that we continue our traditional practice of requiring items that are on the agenda be accompanied by a staff report. So that would include things like appointment of an officer of the corporation by bylaw. That way it appears in the staff report section and can be lifted by council should there be a desire to discuss it.
Okay. Rather than doing it the way you did it in April.
Correct.
Okay.
We're good with that, Council? So just modify your no revisions to that revision that you've just suggested, Clerk.
Okay. Section 17.2. Council may at any time appoint an ad hoc committee to inquire into and report on any matter specific to one subject matter, and that is not of a continuous nature. So the comment was, so any committee that the municipality is part of needs to be approved by council. And staff's comment is any committee that a member serves on as a representative of council must be approved by council. So this includes committees created by council, advisory or ad hoc committees, and committees, boards, etc., that exist outside of council's creation, but for which council does have appointed representatives, like the health unit, KDSB, KDMA, and so on. So essentially, council doesn't approve outside committees, but it does have to approve if it has a member representing council serving on that committee.
Council, questions, comments? The question from the members being answered then, I'm assuming.
Okay.
And we'll move on then to 17.3.
17.3, members appointed by the council to sit on an ad hoc committee shall file their final report or reports to the council for debate and final resolution. The members comment both advisory and ad hoc committees are referenced in the title, but only ad hoc is mentioned in the description. Isn't advisory the official description of our regular committees? So staff just referred the member to section 2.5 and 2.6 respectively for the definitions of ad hoc and advisory committee. We typically use ad hoc committees. Pardon me, we typically use advisory committees. However, council should have the ability to appoint an ad hoc committee if it so desires. Council
Comments, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, just one minor comment there, where it says the advisory committee is mentioned in the description. Possibly that should go as number 17.9 under the section for advisory committees, because that particular 17.3 is about ad hoc committees, just a little bit out of place, I thought.
Okay, I'll look into the.
Yeah. Wasn't so much the definition of the committees, but just that advisory was a little bit out of place in that section.
Okay.
You'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Certainly. Okay, 17.7, list the name. It's just the listing of council's boards, commissions, and committee. The comment from a member was that the Environment Committee is omitted. Additionally, the member stated that, as I understand, Commission Economic Development is a committee, not a commission. So staff's comments, yes, I apologize profusely for the oversight of the Environment Committee in the listing. I'm not quite sure how that happened. I take full responsibility for that. With respect to the comment about economic development, a commission is defined as a municipal services board under the Municipal Act. The Economic Development Commission was set up as a commission, but council has never given it the authority to operate as one. Staff have tried previously to change the terms of reference to make it an advisory committee, as that is how council uses it, but council did not wish to change the setup of the commission at that time. And staff's recommendation specifically to this is to add the Environment Committee to the list of committees.
Councillor Nagle.
Also not on that list is the Kenora Home for the Aged Board.
Oh, sorry. These were just the committees that, like, council's advisory committees.
Oh, okay. All
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further, council? Seeing nothing, we'll move on.
Section 18.1 essentially talks about the criteria for commissions and committees. Members' comment was definitions of commission and committee as needed. Definition of ad hoc and advisory committee are found in 2.5 and 2.6 respectively, and the definition of commission is found under the definition of a local board in section 2.14. No revisions recommended.
Comments, everything all right here, council? Looks good, clerk.
18.2, committee appointments of members of council done at the inaugural meeting. The question from a member was, is this enough time to consider what committees they'd like to sit on? Staff's comments were appointment of council members to its various internal and external boards, commissions, and committees has traditionally occurred at the inaugural meeting, primarily to ensure that no meetings are missed, and that's of particular importance for the outside boards and committees. The transition between councils is very quick and is going to be even quicker starting in 2022. Term of council will be starting 2 weeks earlier than it traditionally has. And so it's important that those appointments to, for example, Kenora District Services Board, Northwestern Health Unit, it's really important that members get appointed really early in the term to make sure that there's consistency and that there's no meetings missed by the municipality for lack of appointing a member.
Council. Let's see, no hands raised. Yeah, no revisions. Move on. Councillor Timpson, was that? No, you didn't have, no, sorry.
Okay.
Good.
So section 8.3, boards, commissions, and committees of council may be appointed by the council at any time of the year as deemed necessary for consideration to special matters. Upon appointment of committee, administration will be directed to prepare the draft terms of reference necessary for the committee to understand its mandate and begin its work. The comment from the member was, as written, it sounds like admin creates the terms of reference. Comments from staff, yes, that's correct. This would apply to both ad hoc committees as well as advisory committees. The first step is for staff to develop the terms of reference for council's review and approval. So terms of reference are adopted as bylaws, so they always require council approval. So that's how council makes sure that what's in the terms of reference is what they want. No revisions are recommended to this section.
Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, on the two committees that I've been sitting on this term, we've worked, the committee itself had worked on what the terms of reference would be, and the administration has compiled it and taken it to council. So shouldn't in there be something about in consultation with the committee?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. So this is about creating a new committee, because there is presently a requirement for all committees to review their terms of reference once a year and to request amendments if they feel they're necessary. This is about appointing a new committee that wouldn't have terms of reference yet.
Oh, okay, I didn't appreciate that fact. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anything further, Council? Looks good, Clerk. Move on.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. 18.4 subsection 3, following approval by members of council, a resolution detailing the appointments shall be presented at a regular meeting for final approval. The comment from member was that it sounds like it'll be delayed until next month's meeting. And this, the comments from staff, this is not the intent. It would be approved as part of reporting out from closed session as we currently do. So this is with respect to appointing members to our own internal boards and committees, appointing the volunteers. So right now we go into closed session, council reviews the applications and the applicants. They discuss that, then they come out of closed session and they pass a resolution to appoint or remove or whatever the case may be. And that would be the intent, that it would be continued that way.
All right, Council. I'm assuming that answers the member's question, so let's move on.
Okay. Section 18.5 talks about the mayor being an ex officio member on all committees. The comment from a member says should exclude hydro meetings, and this was a very good catch. Yes, that's correct. The section will be reworded to reword. Let's try that for a third time. The section will be reworded to state that it applies to those boards, commissions, and committees established under the Municipal Act. So that would serve to exclude the Police Services Board, the Public Library Board, and Hydro. Staff's recommended revision is to update the wording to this and other relevant sections to clarify that it's for boards, commissions, and committees established under the Municipal Act 2001 as amended.
I'm going to assume this satisfies the member's comment and carry on.
Okay. Section 18.7 also sort of has to do with members attending meetings. Members of council may attend and observe discussion on or debate on any board, commission, or committee meeting, but shall not be disruptive or allowed to vote unless they are members appointed by the council to the committee. The question from a member was, some members of council are permitted to attend hydro board meetings. So again, no, please see the previous explanation that was, so we'll fix that by saying that it applies to boards, commissions, and committees created under the Municipal Act.
So, sorry, you're saying that a member of council cannot attend, for example, the Police Services Board meeting?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. I thought they were open to the public. I thought, no.
So in that case, those meetings are open to the public. A member can attend as a member of the public.
Oh, I see what you mean. So not as a member of council. Okay, understood. Thank you. Council? Looks good. Clerk? Oh,
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's a thumbs up. Yep, good.
Okay. Okay. Section 19.1, chair need not vote. The comment was removed. Chair should be required to vote. Otherwise, it'll appear that the chair is just the tiebreaker rather than a sitting member. Staff's comments, I understand. I completely agree. And I think this section should be removed.
Council? Councilor Lego.
Yeah, I think maybe the chair can consider at certain times to, after our discussion when we're voting on a motion, to start the vote, so that not all the time, but make it seem that the chair is not always the last one or the last person to have a vote, and be that to be seen as always a tiebreaker. So I would guess that would be up to the chair to decide, but that might be an option to make it not seem that the chair is always voting last and is always a tiebreaker.
Good, yep. I sure need not vote. Yeah, I think it's good. I think this change is good, and I take that comment for sure. Good.
Okay, 19.4, the vote required to pass a motion shall be a majority, except as otherwise provided in this bylaw or by statute or by legislative authority. Comment from a member of council. It might be valuable to clarify that the formula applies to members present. Staff's comment, staff agrees, that's a great suggestion. It'll be added to the definition of quorum. And so the recommendation is to revise section 2.24, the definition of quorum, to include the words present and voting.
Good, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, just a clarification there. Why, I thought they'd taken out the +1 start stuff, because 50% of 7 is 3.5, so +1 is 4.5. So does 4.5 equal 4, or does it equal 5?
It equals 5.
So, yeah, so that,
Yeah, what does the
Sorry, Captain.
50?
be a majority? Shouldn't it be a majority instead of 50%.1?
The real math is that it's 50% rounded to the higher number at 0.5, right? It's
So it's 4.5. So does that mean it's at 4, or does that mean it?
no. I mean, if it's, I agree, Councillor Timpson. This is perhaps problematic. 50%. Shall be 50% with the number always rounded to the next highest integer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does that make it 5?
No, 4. 50% of 7 is 3 point. Depends on how many are present.
Yeah.
It'll just go. If it's an odd number, it'll divide to a 0.5, and it's rounded to the higher number.
Yeah.
2.5 is rounded to 3. 3.5 is rounded to 4, etc. If it's an even number, it's half of 6 is 3. Half of 4 is 2.
Yeah, because I'd read about that before, and I'd seen them that they were changing it to a simple majority
Clerk, comment?
because of that part, the math.
Councillor Lego. All right, well, clerk first. Do you want to resolve this for us?
Sure. I think Councillor Cassidy also had a comment,
Okay.
so I don't want to circumvent.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy.
Can we just say 50% plus and take out the 1? So it's 50%, and then whatever 50% is, you take the plus of it.
Sure.
Indicates the routing up.
Or maybe we can just say 50% rounded to the rounded up to the nearest integer, or something of that effect.
You can get the wording that is correct and gets rid of this problem that Councillor Timpson has pointed out.
Yeah.
Which we all agree is problematic, right? Yeah.
Yes. This one. Oh. My fingers are starting to not work. Sorry.
Well, you created this lengthy agenda.
I sure did. I created this monster. Oh my goodness. I have no one to blame but myself. Okay. 19.1 and 19.7. So there, the use of gender-specific phrasing, he or she, is what's used in the bylaw. Comment from a member of council is that using the pronoun they would enhance inclusion by increasing the number of persons publicly identifying the sexuality as non-binary or transgender. Staff's recommendation is to add a clause under Article 3, General Provisions, to speak to the use of singular, plural, gender-specific terms, to clarify that the intent is for the bylaw to be inclusive.
So does that remove gender-specific wording, or it's still there but
No,
explained?
it would include gender. The bylaw will still include gender-specific wording, but the clause would be worded to say that the intent is to be read to include non-gender specific or non-binary as well. My concern with using the word "they" is that in certain contexts, it then changes the meaning of the clause. So I would prefer to deal with it in a more formal sense at the beginning of the bylaw and sort of say, and notes to interpretation of bylaw at the beginning is very common anyway. So my recommendation would be to deal with it there than to try to go through and remove all the pronouns from the bylaw.
We would remove all the pronouns, sorry?
I'm suggesting we don't, that instead of
okay.
doing that we put this clause at the beginning under interpretation that talks about how people should read the bylaw, that it's meant to be inclusionary, not exclusionary.
Notwithstanding your great knowledge and research, has somebody not come up with something yet? Isn't there somewhere we can go that has either is there a third pronoun or one pronoun that covers it? Is there?
There at this point there isn't.
Okay.
Different people choose to use different terms. Some choose to use they. However, others do not. So I think choosing a specific term could also be exclusionary because it may not include everyone. Not everyone may choose that particular term. So.
And I guess too wordy to say he, she, or whatever the person chooses to be.
I think by saying that at the beginning of the bylaw, basically he, she also means da 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 da. And I think stating that at the outset then clarifies that the intent throughout the bylaw is to be inclusive.
All right, Council, is this acceptable? Councillor Timpson.
I was going to say, if you put he, she, why not just put he, she, they? And then that covers it, because I think, increasingly, this is coming under more and more criticism. I think it might just avoid some problem if you're putting he, she, then just add they.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, my concern, Councillor Timpson, is that they isn't necessarily fully inclusive either. I've seen other language and other terminology used, and my fear is that if we start including some and not including every possible term, then that may also say that we're specifically excluding a certain group or way that they identify, because not everyone who's transgender or uses they. Sorry, Councillor Timpson, I can't hear you.
I was just thinking cover all three bases anyways. You'd cover three bases if you did it that way. When I was with the FCM, they were using it to talk about people. I thought, oh, that's horrible. But anyway,
yeah, I would not be comfortable with that term. But again, it's not my bylaw.
Yeah, the error of omission may be the least of the two evils here. Just keeping it to he, she, and doing what you've said. Yeah, at this point in the development of the language around this, I'm comfortable with what the clerk is suggesting. Council, I think it might be a difficult one to get right, and this might be the least wrong. All right, if that's okay, we'll move on and take your suggestion, clerk.
Okay, 20.1. Unless a member immediately appeals the chair's decision, the decision of the chair shall be final. The question from a member of council was, to what appeals does this refer? Staff's comment, it refers to any ruling made by the chair. It's typically related to procedural matters and questions of privilege. So staff doesn't recommend any changes to that section.
Council? Seeing nothing, hearing nothing. We're taking council's, staff's recommendation then. Carry on.
Okay. Section 20.7, a request to withdraw a motion shall only be made by the mover of the motion and must be made before the chair states the question. Should the chair state the question for debate, the assembly by majority vote must agree to withdraw the motion. Members comment, is this different than what we do now, where the mover and seconder are asked to withdraw based on the changes that have come from discussion? Staff's comment, not exactly. This would change how we do things. This would mean that before the mayor reads out the motion, the mover only, not the seconder anymore, would need to advise if they wish to withdraw the motion. If the question is stated, i.e. the motion is read, then the withdrawal must be done by a vote of council. This is the, if I can use this term, this is the most correct way to deal with such matters. Once a question is stated, once the motion's read, in parliamentary terms, it becomes the property of the council and not just the member who moved it. So allowing just the mover and seconder to withdraw a motion actually circumvents some of council's authority and ability to deal with that motion. So what we're recommending is that if it's on the floor to withdraw it, it requires a motion to withdraw it.
Can you just take me through a scenario here? Because I'm not quite.
Certainly, absolutely. So let's say there's a motion on the floor to paint the town office pink. And let's say that was moved by Councillor Lego, just because I see him in my view right now. So if Councillor Lego says to you, Mayor Lawrence, I no longer wish to move this motion before you read it, then the motion can be withdrawn. However,
so this is where I'm struggling, because my recollection is we look at the agenda and say, all right, motion is, we need a mover, and I'm just trying to get the sequence here, and there seems to be very little time between the two events. So why would the mover, so help me with that.
Yeah, you're correct. So I think this would probably be a little bit different if we did our motions a little bit differently. What some municipalities do is they print all the motions before the meeting. They circulate them to members of council who sign them as movers and seconders. All of those handwritten, all of those motions are then handed to the mayor before the meeting starts. And that's what the mayor reads, as opposed to reading it off the agenda and asking for a mover and seconder. So in that case, I think you could see how that would, the member signed it, yeah, I'm moving this motion 2 days before the meeting, then the meeting comes up, oh, you know what, I don't want to be the mover, I want to withdraw that. Because that's not how we do things, I could reword 2014 to provide greater clarity by saying that, just to clarify that, basically once it's out there, once a motion's on the floor, it can only be withdrawn by a vote of council. That would simplify it.
And how is that different from what we do now? We allow
what we do now is only the mover and seconder can say, we want to withdraw this motion, okay, and now it's off the floor. Council can't deal with it anymore.
So this gives the whole of council the choice of removing or not.
Correct.
Which I think is better. But the council? Council.
Just want to comment. You're referring to a system whereby the person doesn't voluntarily move an issue, which, there are certain advantages to being the mover of a certain issue. But yeah, and it's sort of kind of like the way we've been doing it here, where the mayor has sort of appointed the mover. What am I trying to say here?
Or I think usually I would say I need a mover and look around the table. Isn't that?
Well, yeah, but the way we've been doing it here virtually, you
oh, I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is for convenience, no problem. But yeah, I don't know. This is kind of I've never come across this before, or this idea before. So
Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I don't think this is much different than what we really have been doing. Usually our discussion will lead us to a point, and once we hit that point, then the suggestion goes out with the mover withdraw, and we make a friendly amendment, and then we go through that kind of process. This is just actually applying ownership of the motion to council now, as opposed to us having to ask the mover and the seconder to withdraw. This essentially just says, we've hit a point of discussion. Now the chair can ask, was council in agreement to withdraw this motion, and we can make a friendly amendment and put it back. And that's, I think we're pretty much doing that already. So I don't see too much issue.
And clerk, could you just, the intent here is?
So the intent is to ensure that two members of council, essentially a mover and seconder, can't circumvent council's desire to deal with a matter at hand. As it stands right now, a mover and seconder can say, oh, we're withdrawing this motion, it's off the table, council can't deal with it anymore. That hasn't happened, but it could happen with the way we currently do things. By doing it this way, it basically says, okay, we as a council have decided we're withdrawing this motion, we're not going to deal with it. The other thing I can do, if it would be helpful to council, is I could do a quick training session on precedence of motions. That may help clarify things a little bit, because there, and Councillor Cassidy, I'm glad you brought up the term friendly amendment, because that's not a thing. I know we've been doing it, and we really shouldn't be doing it. There's no such thing as a friendly amendment. So what I'm hoping to be able to do is to be able to exercise the actual motions that we have. And, so a friendly amendment is technically a motion to amend the motion. And then there's a precedent of how you deal with those motions that get stacked up, and you basically deal with them in reverse order back down to the main motion. So if there's an interest, I would be happy to provide a little training session on that. Alternatively, I can provide advice at the meeting as we go along, as I have in the past. So either way, I'm happy to lend a hand.
It sounds like right now, I think council is good with the change to the withdrawing being a council decision, not mover and seconder. And we value your advice at the table on an ongoing basis. And if we decide we need deeper training into the deeper mysteries of clerkdom, we'll ask for it. How's that?
Sounds great. Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. Okay, may I move on to section 20.31?
I think we're on 20.14.
Oh, my apologies. I got ahead of myself. A point of order may be called by a member to bring notice of the fact that the matter in discussion is not within the scope of the proposed motion. The comment from a member of council was that, as in 8.7, could be used to silence an opposing view. If relevance is questioned, members should have a chance to explain the relevance. Staff's comment, again, the intent is to ensure deliberations remain on topic, and should a member feel that he or she is being unduly silenced, he, she, or they can call a motion to appeal the decision of the chair, which would then be voted on by council.
So we discussed really this item under another item in a very similar way. So
yes,
I'm assuming, unless I see raised hands, we can proceed in the same manner with this one.
Okay. Okay. And here we go. Now we're at 2031. Motion to reconsider same meeting. So the comment from a member of council here was that, is there a system where reconsideration can only be done or considered at a subsequent meeting rather than at the same meeting? Staff's comment, yes, absolutely. This is outlined in section 20.34, amending something previously adopted or rescinded. This is what we were accustomed to and have used in the past. Motion to reconsider at the same meeting is a new provision, and staff doesn't have a recommendation in this respect. If council wants it in, that's great. If council would prefer it not to be in, that's fine too.
So help me here. Are we putting a motion to reconsider at the same meeting in?
That's what's in the bylaw now, but if council would prefer not to reconsider at the same meeting, we can easily take out section 2031.
Well, I'm not sure why you put it in.
For the same reason that we would put it in at a subsequent meeting. Same criteria would apply. New information would have had to have come to light. An error made in the information that was presented. Same criteria would apply for reconsideration, whether it's at the same meeting or a subsequent meeting. I understand, I think, Mayor Lawrence, where you're coming from, is that it would be, how likely would it be that new information would come to light during a meeting on something that would substantially change council's decision? I think I hear where you're coming from there. So again, staff's okay with leaving it in or taking it out.
I've just phoned my friend and he's advised me, or I've got an email here. I've got you. I think we should keep it the same as it is and not put this in, is my opinion. But Councillor Timpson.
Well, I do recall an instance at one point when council approves something in a report, and then later on in the meeting there was a resolution on an issue that was actually quite contrary to something that they had approved in the report. So I mean, I could see this as some value in being left in, because new information, and somebody could say, look, we just approved this in item number 1, and then in item 10 you've disapproved it. So I can see there's some value in leaving it there.
I can perhaps, but I can see it having the opportunity to make staff look like fools, like council look like fools, and also the opportunity for somebody who didn't agree with the decision to maliciously ask for a reconsideration at the same meeting. Sorry, Mr. Clerk, I'm in my review, I didn't pick this up, that we were, I'm not in favor, but council. All right, so I'll call, who's in favor of having the motion to reconsider at the same meeting, as opposed to the way it is now, it must come to the subsequent meeting? And who's not in favor? I see, if not, I don't know what kind of, I'm not dividing by 50% or, so we are saying do not put it in the same meeting.
Okay. Okay, 20.39. A motion to adjourn is not required at the end of a meeting when all business has been dealt with and disposed. Comment from a member of council: is it a good idea to let the chair adjourn at will other than for a disruption? Staff's comment was, as it states in the clause, the chair can only adjourn when, quote, all business has been dealt with and disposed, not at will. So staff recommends no revisions to this section.
I'm wondering if the member, this is really just saying we don't need a motion. Our normal motion at the end of the meeting, motion to adjourn, is redundant now. We're taking that requirement off. It's not saying that I can call a motion to adjourn halfway through the meeting because my dog needs feeding or whatever. Okay. Right. So is the member who asked the question without, council, are you satisfied with no revision to this? I see nobody putting their hand up to say that they're not satisfied. So we've just eliminated it. So does that come into it? No, when does it come into effect? Okay, Mr. Clerk, what else have we got?
Okay, so other comments not related to a specific provision. So table motion, although not defined or used, the term table is utilized in a lot of meetings. The definition would be helpful as it has two opposite meanings depending on whether used in Britain or the US. Could go under section 20.42 and or 20.43. Staff comments. Motion to defer can be until later in the meeting or to a future meeting. It has the same meaning as table, but without the confusion you described. Staff can add the words and or time to the explanation so that 2043 would read, all motions to defer shall contain the reason for deferral and shall provide a proposed date and or time of return. So for example, I move that this item be deferred to 7 o'clock this evening, or I move that this item be deferred to item 7 on the agenda instead of item 6. Or I propose that this item be deferred to the next regular council meeting, and because it can be used either way.
Sounds like a reasonable recommendation. Council?
Just one question there. Would it be useful to just define table somewhere that whether we use the American or the British interpretation of it?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. So Robert's rules, the version for Robert's rules in brief, which is the parliamentary authority that we'll be using with this bylaw, I don't believe actually provides for tabling. It's motion to defer. So that's why it's not included, because it's not part of our legislative authority.
So we're taking the word table right out, so we don't need to reference who.
We don't need to define it because it's not a term we use. It's not a motion we use. We don't use the motion table.
Yeah, and with this recommendation, we're taking it out. It's gone.
Sorry, it's not in there now, and the staff's recommendations that we don't put it in, that we just use motion to defer. Yeah.
Okay. Council? Good.
Okay. So another comment, bring a matter before council. Other municipalities' procedure bylaws have a section on how a member can bring a matter to council for discussion. Can we have such a section? Staff response, this can be done via notice of motion, which is talked about in Article 14. If council wishes other ways, just please, we can talk, please let us know.
Council? Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, they used to, it used to be, you didn't have to go through notice of motion. You just asked for a staff report. Am I correct on that, Brian?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, Councillor Timpson, yeah, you can ask for a staff report, and that would be something that would have to be done by council, though. Like, an individual member can't ask for a staff report. It has to be council to ask for a staff report. I guess notice of motion is how a staff report would get introduced, because council would say, okay, here's my notice of motion. I want us to deal with topic X. And then what automatically happens is, as long as it gets a seconder, it gets put on the next agenda. And then, of course, there would be a staff report because it's an item on the agenda.
But essentially, council has to ask for the report. A single member really can't introduce anything new without council agreeing to it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there any way that a single person and a single member can get something on the agenda without getting council approval to have it on the agenda?
Other than, like I said, other than through a notice of motion, the idea is that, and maybe I should stop talking and defer to the CAO on this. She may have some other thoughts or comments about that.
No, I was just going to agree with the clerk that that's how you get something on the agenda, is through a notice of motion. And then it gets addressed by council. And then if you're requesting a staff report on a particular topic or whatever, council would then, through that motion, provide direction to council, to staff to bring forward a report. But staff takes direction from council as a whole, not individual members.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Councillor Lego.
Would we do that notice of motion at the council table, or do we do that through the CAO and clerk and have it put on the agenda, or
yeah, through you, Mayor Lawrence. So notice of motion, the process, is outlined in there if you want to take a look at section 14. But essentially, the notice of motion gets filed with the clerk. I believe it's noon the day of the council meeting. I would need to double check that, and then it would get added to the agenda that evening, and then council. Then it would require a seconder. As long as there's a seconder, then it gets brought back to the next meeting for discussion.
So yeah, it's item 11 on the agenda is notices of motion, and that's where if a councillor brings a notice of motion to the clerk by noon on the day of the council meeting, then you would say, would you say there's an amendment to the bylaw at 11.1? And
yes, through you, Mayor Lawrence, the clerk would say, as the chair would say, are there any notices of motion or motions to reconsider? The clerk would say, through you, Mayor, yes, we have one motion to reconsider. That motion would be read aloud, and it would require a seconder, and then that's it. Nothing else gets done with it at that meeting.
okay, does that answer the question? Yep. Anything further on this, council? Good. Carry on, Mr. Clerk.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Lawrence. So the last item isn't about the procedure bylaw at all. It's about committee meetings. So council asked staff to bring forward creative options to permit committees to resume meeting this fall to this meeting. Given staff resources' current workload, staff still recommends that the meetings continue to remain on hiatus until January 2020. However, that's not what we were asked to tell you. So to fulfill your request, in order to meet open meeting requirements, the best options is to hold the meetings via Zoom. Staff has identified an opportunity to have the meetings available at no additional cost to the municipality, provided that committee chairs or some committee member agrees to participate in a one-time training session on how to use Zoom to ensure it is being live streamed, to ensure all committee members who wish to participate can participate, including providing instruction and coaching to such members. These meetings will not be supported or assisted by staff or from our Zoom meeting provider. Staff resources are not expected or required to host the Zoom meeting or be responsible, pardon me, for addressing any technical problems that may arise before, during, or after the meeting. Sorry, I'm having difficulty seeing my screen. Chairs would take on the responsibility of creating agendas and for taking minutes and then sending the approved minutes to the clerk's office and notifying the clerk's office of the meeting schedule for the balance of 2020 so that notice requirements can be met. And committee volunteers recognize that staff resources will not have the time to undertake additional research or follow up on any items discussed at committees for the balance of 2020.
Discussion, council? Councillor Cassidy.
Can we not resume meetings as we have been, with few added exceptions of masks, attempting to maintain some social distancing, and having some form of an email to the staff resource or whatnot to maintain these open to the public, that you have to email prior to by 12 o'clock the day of that you are planning to attend that meeting as a member of the public. That way we can control or have an idea of how many people are attending and ensure that they are following the guidelines with masking and whatnot.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. So, sorry, Councillor Cassidy, I missed a couple of words at the beginning. So you're suggesting that committee should be meeting in person?
I'm suggesting in person, masked. Obviously, social distancing when committee meeting or people are sitting. But what I'm also saying is, because the hiccup has been that they're open to the members of the public. My suggestion is that they are still open to members of the public. However, advising a clerk or the staff resources on that my name is so-and-so, I will be attending the meeting, the Environment Committee meeting tonight. I will bring my mask and I'll be in attendance at 6 o'clock. you're open to the public, but it's just that people have to provide a check-in that they are going to come. It's just kind of this world we live in. It just might be a little easier to do it in that way, as opposed to Zoom meetings and some chairs and people with the technology and trying to operate that. This is just a suggestion. I don't know if it was something that was considered or not.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. Yeah, great suggestion. The only challenge is that committees have to meet the same way council does. So that would mean that council would also have to resume in-person meetings. Which, if you're interested, I do have a poll of municipalities across Ontario who are meeting in person, who are meeting electronically, and who are still doing some of both. There's many municipalities are still meeting virtually. Many are meeting in person, and what they've done is they've introduced similar to how we've introduced barriers of glass at our customer service desks. That's what they've done in council chambers, to put glass barriers between members and require their members to wear masks at meetings. And so that's what they've done to resume in-person meetings. Say about 50% have done that.
So just a question, with those in-person meetings, are they open to the public as well, or would live streaming on social media or being on the web broadcasting, would that constitute openness to the public?
That constitutes open to the public, yes.
So if we were to resume in-person meetings masked with the precautions you're suggesting, as long as we live stream on the public, we're meeting our mandate to be open?
Yes.
DAO?
Just add a precaution, in order to meet in person, that would mean extra disinfecting of our facilities wherever we are meeting. So just for example, to deep clean the common areas and bathrooms, public washrooms at the train station, to allow the use of the Boreal room for a meeting would require about 3 hours of staff time cleaning. That's over and above, what they would be doing during the day in their normal course of their workload. So that's something else that we also have to keep in mind. If we are going to resume committee meetings, I personally would prefer Zoom meetings over meeting in person, because logistically it's a lot more work and cost to the municipality to find venues big enough to create the social distancing for committees, because some of the committees have as many as 10 members, and it's almost impossible to create the social distancing and invite members of the public to attend these meetings. We simply don't have those types of venues to allow for that.
Councillor Howie and then Councillor Lego.
So just to kind of reiterate what the CEO is saying and maybe make sense of it. So it'll be at an additional 3 hours of cleaning or staff time per meeting, be it committee meeting or council meeting.
Correct.
Councillor Lego.
Yeah, just to clarify my position on masks, I will not be sitting in a meeting for 4 hours wearing a mask. So I won't be attending meetings. So I prefer Zoom meetings, and that's my position.
So the clerk has presented an option as requested for resuming committee meetings, council boards, commissions, and committees. And this would start in October, is your suggestion, if a committee wanted to go through this procedure. So perhaps what the various members of council do, or the clerk, maybe it's through the clerk, so I don't know how you'd see if there's interest in committees in meeting this way, and if there's somebody who would spearhead it as the chair or the person who's going to learn how to do it by Zoom. So basically this is an offer from administration to resume committee meetings in this manner if committees are willing to do it. Is this correct, clerk?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, almost. Essentially, staff is asking that council make that decision whether or not committees resume meeting. If they do resume meeting, it would be under these conditions. If their staff doesn't recommend, leaving it up to the committee to decide whether or not they want to meet in this fashion, either they meet or either council directs that committees meet or they don't.
I think what, oh, I see. They meet or they don't, or so council says committees start meeting in October and use this methodology. Is that what you're saying? I thought it was, here's the methodology whereby committees could start meeting. If council is all right with this, then each individual committee could decide whether they want to resume meetings in this way. Or we're saying you will resume meetings in this way.
I believe the CAO wants to speak on this.
Good, thank you.
If I may, through you, Mayor Lawrence, to all of council, suggest that it should be a council decision to resume the committee meetings in October or whatever month you want to start resuming them. I don't think it should be left to individual committees to decide if they do or do not want to meet, because the committee should be meeting all, on a regular basis. If we resume them, I think they should be resumed for all committees and not just some.
Okay. Councilor Cassidy.
We can, if we did come out with this and said, yes, all committees do meet, there might not be quorum from other committees, or committees that may not want to meet may just not have quorum and there go postpone the next meeting until they do achieve quorum. So
that's correct.
Ultimately, it still kind of will be up to the committees, but not really coming down from council. We're just either opening them or keeping them closed.
We're saying committees can meet in this manner. Organize yourselves, attend the training, etc. I mean, the administration would have to be involved wholeheartedly in terms of getting people trained and set up for each committee, right?
Yes, so administration would be involved to provide the training. An email would go out to the committees advising of council's decision, and it would be requested that the chair or designate identify somebody to attend training for the Zoom portion of the meetings.
So the chair would decide whether they would do it or would get approach other members of the committee. They don't need a committee meeting to decide this. They're just going to, the chair is going to take the training and call a meeting, or get a delegate to take the training and call a meeting jointly. Okay. So what is the decision you would like council to make? Is council making a motion on this, or what are we doing?
Sure. If you like, I can draft a really quick motion for council's consideration.
I guess what's 4.4? Sorry, Councilor Lego, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding boards. The board I sit on is now meeting in person, so I couldn't go to the last meeting because we're not allowed to attend meetings in person. So I would like to start attending board meetings, because there's not an option to do it by video conference or teleconference. So I don't know if we're going to address that tonight, because there's the next meeting's this month, not in October. So maybe we'll deal with this first section first and then figure out boards, because I'm sure the other boards are meeting as well. So
yeah, our board, the health unit continues to meet, but we're continuing to meet virtually. The district services board at the last meeting gave the option of, so some members were in person and some were virtual. I'm not sure.
KDMA is wants to have a in-person as well.
the Kenora district, the Kenora Home for the Aged is in person.
Councilor Howley.
So just from reading this, it's essentially on the chair of the committee, the volunteer chair of the committee, to take the training, ensure it's live streamed, and kind of just do all the organizing and everything for every meeting?
At least for the time being.
Okay, and just to verify, we have the Zoom capacity to facilitate that for every committee? And okay.
So do you have a motion for us, Clerk?
I have asked a question of the clerk.
Certainly, Councillor Fallon. Yep, your screen is quite fuzzy, hard to see.
Okay. Just give me a sec. I'll turn the lights on this. It's a little better. I have to ask the clerk, what does this mean for the Hudson Advisory Committee?
So one of the members would need to participate in the training so that they know how to conduct the meeting by Zoom, and then from there they would schedule their first meeting for sometime in October.
But we have no Wi-Fi.
Well, so each member would participate from their home like they do now, like
Okay.
you are now.
Yeah.
And it would be a meeting like this.
Just
Okay.
one of your members, Councillor Fallon, would be the host of the Zoom meeting, and it's they would have had the
Yeah.
training, and it's just they're doing it from their laptop or computer at home.
Okay. Yeah, as we are now. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, Clerk, I'm looking to you for a motion. Sorry.
Certainly. Through you, Mayor Lawrence, that council authorizes the resumption of board, committee, and commission meetings effective October 1st, 2020, pursuant to the clerk's framework as outlined in the presentation to council dated September 9th, 2020.
And then can we do, and further in response to Councillor Lego's question, are councillors now, and I have chosen not to attend the District Services Board meeting in person. I'm doing it virtually, and the health unit is virtual. Are we, in our current state, are we permitted to go to meetings personally?
In terms of provincial legislation, it's
No, in terms of, sorry, in terms of
municipal
our
legislation. Yeah, I believe council passed a resolution early on. I will have to go back and check. I believe they passed a resolution saying that members weren't going to travel for any reason. Council may wish to rescind that motion at this meeting, and I can draft something for you if you wish to do that as well.
I think that's what Councillor Lego's asking for,
Yes.
to have permission then to attend the meeting in person.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I haven't broken the law yet by attending any. I'm choosing to attend virtually, and there hasn't been a requirement to be in person.
So my recommendation is, Mayor Lawrence, we can deal with the matter about the boards and committees first, and then we can pass a resolution to rescind the travel restrictions.
So, do you want some time to write that motion up?
Sure. It'll just take a second, or you can ask for a mover and seconder of the one that's on the floor right now.
All right. So the motion that's on the floor, that the clerk read, mover Councillor Cassidy, seconded by, is there a seconder? Councillor Lego. Can I call the vote? Any further discussion, or we've discussed it? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Yeah, I'm gonna put my hand up. Carried.
Okay. So the next resolution, please forgive me, I don't want to take up any more of your time. So if you're okay with a couple of uncertainties in the resolution. I'll fill in the blanks right after the meeting, but essentially it would read that notwithstanding resolution number blank passed at the April blank regular/special council meeting, because I don't recall offhand when it was passed, that council permit the resumption of travel for council business.
We don't need it. I mean, it goes without saying that in accordance with all provincial guidelines, et cetera, we don't need to encumber it. It's
Oh, sure. Okay.
no, I'm not asking for that. I guess it just goes without saying that.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Timpson. Oh, is that, are you discussion or voting? Okay, all in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Okay, discussion. Yep, sorry.
So just to verify, through some, I guess, word of mouth, there was informed of a potential policy within the municipality for staff to restrict travel in the region or outside of the region. Is that
Sorry, Councillor Howard,
factual
you broke up at the beginning of your, can you repeat?
Okay.
You were breaking up.
Yeah, I just wanted. Okay, can you hear me?
We didn't hear you. We can hear you say, "Can you hear me?" But that's all I've got so far. Am I the only one?
So, my question is just verifying that there isn't a policy within the municipality to limit staff travel outside of the region.
So CAO or clerk, what are the policies related to staff travel?
Sorry, I can't see the CAO. I can speak to this a bit. Essentially what happened was staff participation at meetings and conferences and so on and so forth was put on hold because of the financial situation the municipality was in. So that was the reason for the restriction on travel, and that remains in place. With respect to travel outside of the region, all along the municipality's policies have been what the public health policies have been in that respect, or advice has been in that respect. So our position has changed from March until now with respect to intra and inter-provincial travel. So at this point, there are no restrictions from public health representatives respecting intra or inter-provincial travel. So there are no restrictions on our staff either.
Does that clarify, Councillor Howie?
Yes, it does.
So I'll call the motion on council travel again. All in favor? Carried. Mr. Clerk, what's next? We have, are we doing a bylaw or not on the?
Yeah, so on your agenda, we'd be at item 4.3.
The council directs staff to implement the revisions to the draft procedure bylaw as determined at the September 9th, 2020 special council meeting. Moved by Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Timpson. I'll just call the vote. All in favor? Carried. We need a confirmatory bylaw.
Yes, item 4.4 we can skip over because we passed a separate resolution on that. So yes, just the confirmatory bylaw.
That bylaw number 7320, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Sulakot, September 9th special council meeting be read a first, second, a third time and passed. Moved by Councillor Fanlon, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Good night. We don't need a motion. Oh, I do. Oh, I thought we got rid of it. All right, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Timpson. All in favor? Good night. Carried. Thank you. Good,
Thank you.
long meeting, but I think we did a lot of good discussion. And Clerk, I hope you can be satisfied and move things along. Thank you for your work.
I look
Very
forward to
good.
implementing all the changes that that council agreed to and directed this afternoon, and bringing an updated version of the bylaw along with the couple of sections that need a little bit of tweaking still to a meeting in the near future.
And just because we did all this doesn't mean to say that you won't be asked for explanations of what we're doing every step of the way. As
That's
we go
perfectly
on.
fine. That's absolutely my job.
Okay. Thanks. Good
Thanks.
night, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Good day. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Brian.
It is,
a lot of work.
it is appreciated.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
definitely.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so stop share. And